Okay. Good afternoon, ladies. On behalf of the leadership of WIMBIZ and WIMBoard, I warmly welcome you again today to the next session of our WIMBoard mentoring program. My name is Ngozi Nzewu, and I am the chairperson of the WIMBoard mentoring committee. Last week, we started the journey, and from the feedback that we have gotten so far, from it was wonderful to it was explosive to I got 100% returns on my investment from some of the mentees. I am very excited that we are continuing that journey today. As you all know, the reason why we have this program, the WIMBoard mentoring program, which is targeted at experienced board members, those who are already senior executives of companies, both in the public and the private sectors, and then women business owners, those who want to set up well-structured boards. And we are using board gurus. And we have put in place programs that will enable them acquire the experiential knowledge and the resources required to be impactful on the boards. Today, we are having a storytelling session. And because we want the program to be as practical as possible, we want to make it as real as possible. That's the reason why we have our two mentors today. For diversity, we have a man and a woman. Yewande, whose career in the bank, she's a banker turned entrepreneur whose career is eventful, both as a career person, as also as an entrepreneur. She's going to tell us her story. And then, of course, someone that I call my boss for life, Bismarck Rewane of financial derivatives, who I sit on his board as well as a director, is also coming to share his own experience. So I urge you today to sit back, relax with your notes and your pens, take everything in. Because I strongly believe that success is not a state you arrive at. It depends on your manner of traveling. It's also not a destination, it's a journey. And no one person or two people who have the same story. Everybody has a different story, and we want to hear the story today. How did they start? Where are they now? What are the decisions that they took that got them to where they are? Because we want to fast track our own process and our own journey. I believe that in the course of this program, we also want to hear from the mentees who were here last week. When we had those impactful sessions from Funke Oshibodu and Awuneba Jumogobia, they talked about personal effectiveness for board, and also they talked about building a board-ready profile. We want to hear from you, our mentees. What are the takeaways? And what are you planning to do? Your action plan after you must have heard from them, so that we know that this program is giving the value that we planned it to give. And that we also know that once you leave here at the end of this program in 3 months' time, you are ready to hit the board. You are ready to become very impactful. And this exercise would have been successful if that is what eventually happens. Thank you very much as I hand over to our moderator for today.
Thank you very much. This is Ngozi Nzo, my able chair. So hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled My Journey to the Boardroom. This is the second session of the series of training planned for the 3-month WIMBoard mentoring program. My name is Hetty Ubo, and I will be your moderator for today. I'm an ex-banker. I retired from Citibank Nigeria Limited and currently the CEO of Norwich Limited. I'm a member of the WIMBoard Mentoring Committee, and I'm excited to be moderating the session today. Our goal today is to help our mentees who are already on boards or aspire to be on a board to gain insight and inspiration from the mentors on their journey to and in the boardroom. So let's talk about the format of the discussions for today. We will spend about 15 to 20 minutes hearing from the mentor on the subject matter, then a fully interactive session of questions, contributions to engage with the mentor will happen for 40 minutes, and a final conclusion by the mentor thereafter. During the interactive session, if you want to speak, because we would like to hear from you, include your voice in this conversation, kindly raise your hand on the Zoom platform by clicking the raise hand icon by your names, and admin will unmute you to talk. In addition to this, if you prefer to type your questions, you can do that in the Q&A or chat box. Kindly keep your questions brief and to the point. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, who will be taking the first session of my journey to the boardroom, Mrs. Yewande Zaccheaus. Let me give a bit of her bio before I invite her to take on. Mrs. Yewande Zaccheaus is the founder and CEO of Eventful Limited, a leading event planning and consulting company in Nigeria. She's a lawyer and banker and has had a successful career in both the legal profession and in banking. Yewande is very passionate about redefining the events and entertainment landscape of Nigeria. And indeed, she's the convener of several fairs, including, like we all know, the food souk, the beauty souk, the fashion souk, and then the street souk. And these fairs have been well received and have indeed become annual landmark events on the Lagos social calendar. Yewande is a founding trustee and a past chairperson of WIMBIZ, this organization that has actually, brought this event to you. She has received several prestigious awards and indeed serves on boards of several corporate companies. She's an author. She wrote 4 inspirational books. She's married with children. So therefore, join me in welcoming Mrs. Yewande Zaccheaus to hear her story, my journey to the boardroom. Thank you very much. Yewande, please, over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me clearly. Okay, so it's a storytelling session, so I shall just be gisting with you over the next 15 minutes. And the way I've decided to tell my story, essentially, is to talk about my background a little, and then the boards I've been on, and the ones I'm still on, and why and how I believe I was invited. And then to talk a little about what I think companies are looking for when they're looking for people to serve on their boards, and then what I think we should look for when we want to serve on any board. And then finally, a few tips on what to do when you get there. So essentially, I'll just be giving bare bones because I know that during the interactive session, we'll be able to speak a lot more. So my background, I'm a lawyer, qualified in University of Lagos in 1982, law school 1983, and then I went off to Cambridge for my master's in law in 1984. I returned to Nigeria to start my youth service in Nigerian American Merchant Bank. I was a youth corper in the legal department, and I was there for 2 years. I think I got a bit bored and thought that the legal life would be more exciting. So I went to a small boutique law firm, R.I. Kukwenko, where I worked for 2 years and then realized that, nope, I don't think that the legal life is for me, as in going to court. And I now went, got a job in EcoBank as a pioneer company secretary and legal advisor. I was in EcoBank for 13 years, and I left at the general manager level to set up my own business in events planning, Eventful Limited. For the last 2 years in EcoBank, I was also the head of private banking. So the time I was in EcoBank actually exposed me to a lot of the kind of people who I would be dealing with on boards. And I was a company secretary for 30 years, so a very distinguished, very complex, and very interesting board of directors. And I believe that's really where I cut my teeth and learned a lot about the goings on of a board. So that is my background in brief. Now to talk about my board appointments. The very first board appointments I had, of course, 1999, 10 years after I got married, was actually to my husband's company. So for most of us, that's probably where we'll start, with family and friends. And I mean, needless to say, I'm still on that board, Zaccheaus from 1999. Then 2002, WIMBIZ was set up. And as you know, I mean, we started off as an executive council and then morphed into a board of trustees. As you all know, I'm still on the board of trustees of WIMBIZ. Then 2002 was when I started Eventful. In fact, the WIMBIZ conference was on one of my very first events. And I'm on that board. My husband is the chairman. So, you know, those are still sort of family connected boards. My first sort of outside board I was invited to was in 2008, Fortress Microfinance Bank. And that was formed by a friend of mine. We were friends in EcoBank, and she and her husband, after we were both retired, she wanted to set up this microfinance bank. She was very passionate about, relieving the troubles of the indigent poor. And I was actually a shareholder in that company as well. But I left that board, I think 2011, 2012, because she now relocated to the UK and left the company to be run by people I wasn't sure about. And, you know, when you're on the board of a financial institution, you need to be very careful. So I didn't want to, still be sitting on her board when she wasn't there anymore. And that's a tip for you. I resigned from that board. Then another company invited me in 2008, Corporate Leisure Limited. Now, Corporate Leisure was a hospitality and leisure company for corporates. And I think clearly I was invited there because of my events experience and because I had both events experience and corporate experience, having come from the bank. And essentially that company did corporate, things like having cruises for companies who want to reward their directors or their staff or their clients, organizing, going to Wimbledon, golf tournaments, festivals around the world. So that was very interesting. But sadly, the company has actually, as with many startups, it was, I think, an idea before its time, sort of, and also because also a lot of corporate companies started having their own event departments. So the company has actually folded up now, and we just left the board. But it was a very interesting board, and I had a vibrant time and learned a lot there. Then the next one was an NGO board, and that's another thing that I think a lot of us should look at as well, apart from startups. This was a faith-based NGO, actually set up by my pastor's wife, Pastor Nomti Odukoya, who's South African. It's called Fundawazi Limited, and Fundawazi in Zulu means learn and grow. She is big on children's rights, and I believe I was invited onto that board because I was already on two of the women's initiatives in church, and I think also because of my ministry in terms of people who are waiting on God for children. So I believe she felt that I would be able to add value. And then it's a very event-driven organization. They do a lot of events, and I think all that experience is what made her, ask me to come on the board, and I'm still on that board till now. The same year, I was appointed onto the governing council of the Lagos State University by the governor then, Governor Ambode. And that, I think, is probably one of the ones you'd probably say was tokenism, because I believe they wanted me to fill 2 boxes. They wanted a female entrepreneur, possibly. And I think also they wanted somebody from Ekpe.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes. You can't hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you. I'm sorry.
We can hear you.
Somebody said hello, Ma, so I was surprised. Okay. So as I was saying, so I was invited to tick those boxes. I mean, I think Governor Ambody probably wanted somebody from Ekpe. As I said, I'm originally Undu, but married to an Ekpe man. So, but as Mrs. Shibadu said last year, yeah, even if it's tokenism, go there and do your best. And the LASU Governing Council, that is essentially like a board of directors for a university. That was very interesting, made up of, academics and the unions. And so I saw a totally different side of life. And that was also very interesting. But that board also, we have now the people who were appointed during the Independence Council members appointed during Governor Ambody's have obviously, we have all now retired since Governor Sanwo-Olu has come in. 2016, I was invited onto the board of Data Guard Document Management Company, which is a company that does physical and electronic documents management, which I really knew nothing about and I found quite interesting. But, as I was sort of preparing for this talk, I just thought, okay, let me call some of the people who invited me and let me not just assume why did they invite me. And I asked Femi Ogujimi, who is one of the investors and the person who came to see me. And he said that I sort of thought, yeah, maybe my network, maybe WIMBIZ, and of course they wanted to take the female entrepreneur box. But he said that the most important reason why he actually asked me to come onto that board was because I had been very successful at the business I had built. And I found that quite interesting because that never really occurred to me. And he said that for them, when they're looking for people on boards, first of all, they look what you're doing now, how good are you at what you do? And then he also said, well, they wanted a female. They wanted somebody who had a legal background because they were going to be dealing in documents and a lot of their clients were going to be lawyers. And they also wanted somebody who had an extensive network. And, when they went to their parents' company, where two gentlemen who I know very well, Mr. Fola Adeola and also Mr. Aswe Gudalu were, and they said, does she have all these things that we think she has? And apparently both of them said, yes, of course, an extensive network. And also they wanted an entrepreneur who understands the business, who understands business and starts up. And that was how I got onto Data Guard Document Management Board. And that has also been a very interesting journey because it's actually an area that I didn't know much about when I started. Then 2018, I remember I told you I was on Fortress, but I sort of resigned from Fortress. I was invited by Dr. Sulaiman to join the board of Beyond Credit Microfinance Bank, which is a microfinance bank that's focused on lending to indigent women. I mean, you'll be amazed that the loans are 20,000, 50,000. So we're talking about the real entrepreneurs at the grassroots level. And I knew clearly it couldn't be my WIMBIZ network that was going to get me there because, I mean, clearly in WIMBIZ, we're dealing with much higher profile women. So I spoke to Dr. as well, and I said, so what was actually the real reason you asked me to join that board? And he said exactly what Femi said. He said, because you've made a name for yourself in the business that you've started, that you have proven competence, you've shown diligence, and that you have a good public profile, you're professional, and you're known to have integrity. And that they assume that the fact that you have been able to build a business and run it successfully for so many years, that you'll be able to apply that same rigor to their board. So that was the reason that because I thought it would be good to actually find out exactly why and not just second guess. And 2018, I was asked to join Hartley's Supermarket, and this time as the chairman. Hartley's was the former Goodies. I'm sure most of you know Goodies. And I assumed that this was because of my experience with my souks. As you know, I do a food souk, so I know a lot of people in the food business, and then of course all the entrepreneurs. And again, I thought my network, women are those who make most of the decisions, who do the shopping in supermarkets. But then I asked the gentleman who invited me onto that board as well, and I said, what was your actual reason? And he said, you know what? Because I said to him, I think it's because I'm a woman entrepreneur and because of my souks and this. And he said, absolutely not, that maybe that would be 5%. But that I wanted a female entrepreneur who would understand the issues of a company that had been bought over and had legacy issues. I mean, as most of you know, before Goodies was sold, there were a lot of issues between the brothers that owned it. So he said he didn't want a professional who would be too far to the left or too far to the right. He needed somebody who had started a business, an innovative business at that time, pioneered an industry, and understood the vagaries of things going up and down. And for him, that was actually what was most important. So I found that also very interesting. And while I talk about Hartley's, let me put in a quick plug. Our flagship store, which is going to be like Waitrose, is coming up in Falomo, so all of you check it out. We say this is our journey, our story. So that's it, Hartley's. And then I want to make a quick mention of two other organizations which are not actually boards, but I think it's just for you. I think it's interesting to see how I was invited onto those ones. There's a France-Nigeria investment club. I belong to a dining club called a women's business club called Gaia. And we usually, before pandemic, would have dinners every month and then we'd sort of introduce ourselves and say what we do. And I did that as we normally do. And one lady there heard me talk about my souks and that, and she was quite close to the French embassy. And when President Macron was going to come in to visit Nigeria, they wanted to start up this investment club. They wanted some SMEs. They wanted some, corporate, the big corporate giants. And she just recommended me because she felt that what I was doing in that souk and fair space, which really was just an offshoot of my events business, was really good and would speak to them. And President Macron sent a forward team and I was interviewed. And that was exactly what they wanted. And that was how I was invited onto that club. And there were only two other, entrepreneurial women on there. And most of them were all the huge conglomerates. So that was quite exciting. So it's basically what you do and who you are. Then 2020, yes, just this year, I've just been made the chairman of the advisory board of an NGO that's based in America called Aniden Gives. Now, it's an American NGO which provides financial intervention for people who have fertility issues. And how did I get onto that one? I was sitting in the museum. I mean, we went to watch a play, myself and my sister, Mobola, and I think somebody saved a seat. Anyway, we started talking to these two women we didn't know. When they found out, we introduced ourselves, she found out my name. Oh my God, God's Waiting Room, you wrote the books. And then she now tells me about her friend in America who has this NGO and has been looking for somebody in Nigeria to partner. Anyway, that was exactly how I met these people. I didn't know, but they'd heard about the books. They wanted somebody who they felt had credibility, who was also interested in this fertility journey. And I'm now chairman of their advisory board, and that will soon be morphing into, into a board of trustees. So really, that's my story. Nothing was ever sort of intentional or deliberate. It was always just a function of, what I do and who I am. Okay. So I said, I'll tell you, so what are people looking for? What are companies looking for when they want to invite people onto the boards? How successful you are at what you do. So, and I don't know if WIMBoard is going to be very happy about what I'm going to say now. This webinars, this, learning, this knowledge is fantastic and we should do it. But it's not actually what gets you there. But it's good to have the knowledge, it's good to have the insight, it's good to be inspired, but it's how successful you are at what you do. So if you're an entrepreneur, build your business. As you're building your business and making a success of it, people will come to know you. And when that sort of role comes up, people will remember you. If you're a professional, be an excellent professional. Do what you do and be the best at what you do. Focus on building your business, your career, volunteer, be a thought leader, be visible. But let your work speak for you, because that is what makes you top of mind at the time when these roles and opportunities come up. So what are people looking for again, apart from how successful you are at what you do? It's what they need, because really it's about what they need. What gap do they want to fill? Because you see, you may have all the competences in the world, but if it doesn't suit their gap, then it won't matter. Recently, somebody who was headhunting for directors, non-executive directors for a bank, thought that I'd be a good fit for this bank. And I thought, oh God, this sounds interesting. They wanted a female. However, they didn't want a Yoruba female. They wanted somebody from the South. So even though I ticked all the boxes and it seemed perfect, what that company needed, because that was what they were looking for, maybe they had enough people from the Southwest, was somebody from the South. Now, you may be, it may also be an issue of, your character. Maybe they feel that the people on the board are a bit passive. Maybe they feel the women there are passive. Maybe they need a woman who's more outspoken. Maybe they know you have a reputation for being able to speak your mind. You're bold without being aggressive. So it just depends on what they need, and no matter how many boxes you tick, no matter how many webinars and how ready and prepared you are, if the companies do not need you and need your competences at that time, you will not get invited. And then, of course, character is absolutely key. There's nothing like a good reputation, because you see, even if you tick all the boxes, you're extremely professional, you've built a good business, but people know that you're cantankerous, or they know that you have issues with people, and they know that you're just going to come and spoil the dynamics of their board, you'll never ever get invited to a board. So that is what people are looking for. But having said that, I think that we shouldn't look at ourselves as poor relatives. And I want to speak to the entrepreneurs now, because even WIMBoard, you keep saying that for entrepreneurs, they want to build a structured board. I don't know why you keep thinking entrepreneurs don't want to be on boards as well. It's not just for people who are in the profession. It's not just for people who are executives in multinationals. Entrepreneurs also want to be on boards. So what should we look for when we have now been invited to a board? I think the composition of the board is absolutely important. Most of the boards I've been invited on have been startups, but they've been startups that have been headed with people who are well-known, who are reputable. I mean, in DataGuard, the chairman is Kenny Bukwe, who is former managing partner of PwC, a highly reputable, highly intelligent. We've got Mr. K. Ahmad on the board. I mean, in corporate leisure, I had Billy Lawson, Akike Korea, Tunde Dabiri. So it's very, very important, the kind of people who are on your board. I mean, don't just go onto any board. So look out for that and make sure that there are people that have the same values you have. Because of the fiduciary duties and responsibilities you're going to have, you have to make sure that it's people that you're not going to be at war when it's a matter of value and they want to do something one way and you're absolutely not going to want to do it that way. And then also, what does the company do? I think it's important to be interested in what they do. It may be something you don't know anything about, but then you get to learn. And I think that's actually the most exciting part for me of being on all these varied boards. You get to learn about so many things. I mean, we all think we know everything about supermarkets, but being a chairman of Hartley Supermarket has opened my minds to so many things that I didn't know. So you need to be interested. And then I think for all of us who are aspiring, I mean, I'm not talking now to those who are already on boards, I think it's really important you consider startups, consider family boards, because everybody's looking for the multinationals, the telcos, the banks. And the reality is that not many of us are going to get onto those boards, but we can still have the board experience. And in fact, have a much deeper and a more robust experience of these younger companies. I'm actually on the board of the microfinance bank. One of the ladies there, she is a board guru. I know she said to me, Yewande, the thing is, we add a lot more value in this company than I do on all these big boards, because most of the time, the men have already had their meetings, they've said what they're going to do, and they're just coming to give it to you to rubber stamp. So you actually are able to be a lot more involved and a lot more creative. So those are the things I think you should look for. And finally, and I hope I talk very fast, I hope I haven't been too fast. I actually promised myself I would try and speak, not too fast. When you are there, what do? Be confident and be bold. Don't be intimidated. Always ask questions. One of my greatest fears, because I'm not a numbers person at all, but I have run a business for 18 years. I'm not a numbers person, and I've always been a bit terrified of the financial side of things. But I just decided that, the people who know this thing, they don't have to wait, so just get in there. And I find that when I study the accounts and then I notice something, sometimes I'm like a bit, should I say this? But then when I say it, they've actually made a mistake. And you're like, you see now, if you didn't talk, this would have happened. So be bold. Don't be intimidated. Ask questions. That's why you're a director. You're allowed to ask questions. Always be prepared for your meetings. Always be very prepared for your meetings, and always be well informed, because there's nothing like being at a board meeting and not being well informed and not being, be that person that that management will be afraid of you, that that one, eagle eye, she will spot that difference, she will note that thing. I mean, because of my many years as a company secretary and as a lawyer, I mean, things jump out at me, things that people may not notice. So I mean, my family say it's a gift, but then be that person that will notice if things are wrong. And then be committed, be ethical, and then be yourself. Because that was the reason they invited you. Don't go there and try and be somebody else. They knew who you were and all the reasons, everything you've brought to the table. That's why they've invited you to come. And then, apart from being yourself, the other thing that is extremely important is always make sure you recommend other women when there's an opportunity and an opening on your board. And I'm proud to say that at least on 2 boards, I've been able to do that. But I can share a little bit more about that in the Q&A. So that's my story. And I'll be very happy to answer your questions now. Thank you. Hetty, over to you, I think.
Yes. Thank you so very much, Mrs. Zaccheaus. This is a breath of fresh air, if I may say, right from the heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. We're very grateful. Before we open it up, like I said earlier, if you have questions to ask, please put up your hand to signify, and then admin will unmute you, or you drop your question in the chat box. But having said that, I took away quite a lot of things in the short period that you spoke. And you are in so many boards. And you looked at not-for-profit, you're involved in not-for-profit, financial services, and of course, you run your own company. And you have made it clear to us that we need to be successful at what we do. We need to always put our best foot forward, because you really never know when you're going to get an opportunity. Exactly. And look at the Nigerian France Investment Club. Mm-hmm. You went for a meeting and you met someone, mm-hmm. and then an opportunity fell right onto your lap. Mm-hmm. That is so, so awesome. Thank you very much, ma'am. So question time. So please, if you have any questions for Mrs. Yewande Zaccheaus, can you just please indicate by raising up your hand or dropping your question in the chat box, and then we will call you up. But having said that, let me start off by asking you a question. You started from the banking sector and your firm, and you found out that that wasn't really your forte. It wasn't your area of strength, and you decided to set up your business. All right? Mm-hmm. So that presupposes that you had capital. A lot of people tend to work longer than they want to work because they need to get some money. They need to get paid. So how did you manage on the startup capital for your new business?
Okay. Well, I mean, as I've said, I'd been in banking for a long time. I'd been in working for a long time. I had savings, and then also I had a gratuity because I was at the bank for quite a long time. However, the business I went into was also a business that did not require a lot of capital to start. I mean, I actually started off my business. I took one room in my husband's printing factory. I was using everything that he had, his phone, his whatever. And, it was basically a business where, based on your credibility, people would give you the events, and then you would be paid to do the events. Because for everything that you're going to provide for an event, whether corporate or retail, they would actually pay you for that. So, I mean, even though I had my own small capital to start off with, I didn't need a huge amount of capital. It wasn't a manufacturing company. But then as I grew, I was able to now leave the comfort of my husband's office. I was able to get my own office, and I was able to grow the business. And, here we are 18 years later. So that really was it.
Thank you so much. So already I've been getting prompts. The ladies want to ask questions. So can I hand this over to Sumbo? Sumbo, I know you were trying to ask a question. You said that the raising of hands button isn't working. Yes, so please go ahead, Sumbo.
And I can't start my video either, so pardon me. Good afternoon, Mrs. Zaccheaus. Thank you very much. This was a really, I have to start my video. Okay, so this was a really...
Yes, it was a bit odd to not see your face. Thank you.
I know. So this has been a very insightful session. I put a comment in the chat section that as somebody who also speaks very fast, I feel heard and I felt seen. So my question is, have you ever had to turn down an invitation to join a board? Or have you ever had to resign from a board? And if you ever have actually turned down the option to join a board, why? So how do you know what boards fit for you, which ones don't make sense, and which ones, do you ever feel like somebody's trying to use you for a purpose that you don't want to be used for, and you said that, maybe no, this isn't working for me. So how do you reject being on a board, even though we know kind of we're all aspiring to get on boards?
Okay. Well, to be honest, I haven't actually turned one down, but as I said at the beginning of my story, I did resign from a board. I said that Fortress Microfinance was set up by a friend of mine and her husband. And then when she relocated, and I was a little bit concerned about the way the company was being run, and being a financial institution, I didn't want to be on the board of a financial institution that was not being run properly, especially as the person had relocated, even though she said she was trying to do it remotely. So at that time, I resigned from the board, and I gave her the exact reasons why. And I was even an investor. So in fact, I was very pained about that board, because not only was I an investor, I brought my friend also to invest with me, and even my husband. So I lost money, but it was, for me, it was just safer than getting into any trouble with the law in a future date. So if you are not comfortable with how a company is being run, if you're not comfortable with what they're doing, and to be honest, it's not as if they were doing anything that was illegal or anything. I just felt that that there wasn't going to be enough due diligence, and I just didn't want to be involved with a company that will now have problems. I mean, if a company folds up because business experience or the business terrain is not good, it's a different thing.
Yes.
But I just felt that company may not be well managed, and I realized that I needed to leave, and I left. So that's the only time I've left a board.
Okay. Do you have any red flags? Or do you find yourself having like, okay, if this isn't here, if this isn't here, if this isn't here, this is not important.
If corporate governance is not being followed, if they're not doing things according to the law, the thing, even though I'm now in the entertainment business, I'm an event planner, I am a compliant person by nature. I will not do anything that is against the law. I mean, a very quick example, a lot of people are saying that event centers are open now, even though the governor has not actually opened them officially. I just cannot do anything that is against the law. So for me, if I'm sitting anywhere and there's something happening that I know this is not, is not the straight and narrow, I can't do it. I mean, I guess I'm just a coward. Or maybe it's called integrity. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sumbo. So I would like to ask Olajumoke Laoye to please ask a question. Admin, can you unmute her? Okay, Jumoke, you have the floor. Sorry, Jumoke, we can't hear you.
I can't see her either.
Sorry, we can still hear you, Jumoke.
Her photograph came on. I mean, her video came on for a minute.
Yes, her video is on actually. Sorry, Jumoke, we can't hear you. Let me quickly move to Ibironke, and then we'll come back to you, Jumoke, so that we don't waste time. So Ibironke, can you go ahead with your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. Mrs. Zaccheaus, honestly,
yes,
that's a very, very beautiful presentation, very informative, very inspiring. In fact, I don't know how to qualify it. I'm going to talk about it today. Honestly, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Keep it up. Just a question to ask. Were you able to identify any difference as regards your experience at the public level, I mean public setting, and at the so many private setting, the board level that you find yourself?
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I guess Chatham House rules apply here. Whatever we say remains here. It was extremely interesting to be on the Governing Council of LASU, because that was actually my real first experience with the public sector. The first thing that blew my mind was that we would have 1,000-page briefing material. I mean, when they bring the briefing material to you, you need like a month to go through it. And then the meetings would be for 12 hours, which was impossible. We'd have to go all the way to Ojo. So definitely the way things were done were very different. I think it's just because that's the way things had always been done there. And I mean, we would always have a few, there'd always be maybe about 6 or 8 of us that would be from the private sector that were on these boards, and we would be there and we'd be wondering, let's get on with it. I mean, the kind of, but I think that's just the way things are done there. People must go through the entire process. They must check every single document. When they're doing promotions, every name from the cleaner to the vice chancellor is there. So I found that things took a long time to happen. I found also that there was the detail that they would bring, I felt was unnecessary. I felt a lot of things could have been handled at management level before you bring it, because that's what happens in corporates. A lot of things is done at management level and then you just brought the summary. So that was really what I found was different about public sector. It took much longer to make decisions, and the kind of red tape and bureaucracy, that's what I'm looking for. That it was different, it was unusual for me, but I think it was also a very useful experience to have.
Okay.
Taught me patience. Taught me patience.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Bironke. All right, someone asked, how do you do it? You're in so many boards. So how do you juggle your time, family, and then your faith as well?
No, now remember, some of the boards that I mentioned, I'm no longer on those boards. I told you I'm not on Fortress anymore. I'm not on Corporate Leisure. So I think right now I'm on about 4. How do I juggle it? Sometimes I ask myself the same question. But I think I've always been a multitasker. I've always been somebody who can manage to do many things at a time. I think it's just a natural propensity. And I think that's why I was able to be successful at events management, because you need to be able to think of so many things at the same time to make sure that, you know, your goal is met. So, but I think it's also because I'm a very organized person, you know. I like to do things. I mean, my sisters were laughing at me. In fact, even Hansatu, even though, yes, this is my story, I know it off heart. I prepare for everything. I don't take anything for granted. I prepare meticulously for things. And because I prepare and I organize things, I'm able to just make things fit. So, but, you know, at the same time, I'm getting to the stage where I believe that, you know, I'm winding down, because the days of darting around like a chicken with its head cut off, as my dad used to say, are long gone. But I think I'm just a normal multitasker, and that's why I do it.
All right, excellent. Okay, yes, I have Yinka who wants to speak now. Yinka, are you ready?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Mrs. Zaccheaus. That was a very interesting story. I would like to find out, have you ever been placed on an ineffective board? And what were you able to do to make it more effective?
Now, that's a very interesting question. An ineffective board.
The reason why I ask is because some family boards may be difficult to manage, because if you have a corporate experience and family members are more from a different experience, they may not understand some of your ways. But just to ask generally, if you've been placed on an ineffective board.
Well, you know, the two family boards I am on, I'm more or less in charge, so it hasn't been a problem, because I mean, you know, well, my husband's own, it's his own business. I help as I need be, so it's not an extended family like that. I mean, the only one, and you know, I think it would be unfair to say it was ineffective, but it just was slower. You know, the public sector board I spoke about, and because there you don't really have the powers, you know, because you are not in the system. It's only those, and I think the vice chancellor that we had, he was new, Professor Larry Fagbon, when I was there, he did an amazing job, because he was actually very professional. He was a lawyer, very well read. So he really did his best to sort of change. In fact, let me say this. I mean, by the time I left, instead of giving us 1,000-page papers, they started putting it on diskettes and flash drives for us. They even gave every single member of the board a laptop so that you would have everything downloaded. So, you know, even they would, they saw what the issues were and they tried to address it. But I think in terms of if your real reference is to a family board, I think what you need to do is you need to let people know that, you know, there is a way these things are run if the business is going to be successful. Because the problem with a lot of family businesses, people need to decide, is it a serious business or is it a hobby? You know, so if it's something that they're just doing as a hobby, nobody's taking it seriously, nobody wants to take it to the next level, then, you know, it'd be a waste of your time. But if it's something that really they want to take to the next level, but they don't know how, I think it's just clear for you to say, look, this isn't how it's done. And if we do it this way, we're not going to go very far. So that's the experience I think I have in terms of that. I hope that helps a bit.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, someone says, I am loving the authenticity from Mrs. Zaccheaus. That is a very good one.
I don't know how to get any other way.
Very forthright, coming right from the heart. So I think this makes a good segue into the next question I'd like to ask. Family business, you working with your husband, all right? Somebody calls it co-preneur. That is working with your husband. How did you manage with that? Because you said you started off by being on the board of your husband's business.
Well, I guess I was really fortunate because, you know, my husband is actually, he's very easygoing. And he's the kind of person that feels, you know, if you know what, if you're the one that knows how to do this one, you do it. So it wasn't that I was like, actively involved in his company, but I was there, you know, I mean, as to help. I was there like the time when we really sort of had like when we were trying to look for like investments in the company. So we'd have meetings, you know, that were quite important and needed legal advice. So it wasn't that I was sitting, we weren't running the business together. It was his business. But it's just that when I started my own business, I now had you know, I was his tenant. I took a room in his office. So it wasn't like I was a co-preneur in that light. So it wasn't that, you know, organic. But I think for anybody who is working with their husband, what you need is a lot of patience and a lot of wisdom. So there he is. And even as he's chairman of my company and has been for the past 18 years, I mean, he does stuff on me, like if I need doors open, if I need things to be done. I mean, you know, so it's like, it's not like we're working together. He's not a part of Eventful, but anything that he can do to make a way for Eventful, it's a connection I know he has, something he can do, I reach out to him. So that's actually the way it's worked for us.
Excellent. Excellent. So Yinka, are you ready to ask your question?
Sorry, I need to lower my hand. Thank you.
Oh, please do so. Okay, can you ask your question then?
I already did. I just need to lower my hand. Thank you.
It's Jumoke.
Okay, Jumoke isn't back yet.
I am back. I'm not sure if you can hear or see me.
I can hear you, but sadly I can't see you.
Not a problem. I don't think they're letting me. Okay, let's see. Bear with me.
But we can hear you, Jumoke.
Okay, great.
I can see you. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Excellent.
Keke, for the advice on taking off my headset. I think that helps. Okay, great. Thank you so much for this session, and also thank you for the speed. It's also it's been very inspiring to hear, very insightful. My first question was actually answered, so thank you for answering that as well. My second question had to do with the fact that if you're invited onto a board based on tokenism, how effective do you feel you can be, or is it something you need to work your way up within the board?
I mean, I think you can be absolutely effective. I think tokenism is good, though. Don't let's even get it wrong here. We're trying to get women on boards. So if now, because as I said, for almost every company that I was invited on, they wanted a woman because they wanted to fill that space. Yeah. So once you're there, they've also invited you not only because you're a woman, but because you're good at what you do as a woman. So when you get there, you just really need to show that, demonstrate that competence. Let them see that that rigor that you apply to your business, you apply it to their own business. So I don't think tokenism is a bad thing at all. I mean, for me, we need to get our foot in the door. However we're going to get it in, as long as it's legal, let's get there. And then when we get there, let's shine so that they can't even do without us. So for me, I think just be there, go there and be yourself. Because apart from being a woman, you know, like let's say, as I've said many times, many people will have the same competencies, but it may be that you're a woman this time. A man could have had the same. So if you've been there if you've gotten there as a woman, just be the best woman you can be there so that you'll be able to also give other women a chance. So please do not turn your nose down at tokenism. I very truthfully told you that the reason I got onto last was because my husband is an indigent of Epe, and the governor wanted to fill that box. The governor, you know, he knew him well. And I was very, you know, I was very happy to do it and do it well while I was there. Yeah.
Okay.
So
thank you so much.
Go for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Olajumoke.
Thank you.
So okay. So as we wait for more women to indicate their questions, let me quickly ask: as you had this journey, you've had this journey with the twists, the turns, the ups, the downs. You know, looking back, what will you have done differently?
My entrepreneurial journey or my board journey?
Both.
You know what? For my entrepreneurial journey, sometimes I say I wish I'd started earlier, but then I realize that no, because you know, timing is everything. Because when I left the bank, I left, as I said, at a very senior level. So it meant that when I transited to a business that really nobody had heard of, the credibility of the position and the experience that I had in the bank, was what I was able to use to leapfrog into my business. Maybe if I had left, you know, when I was a bit more junior, maybe people would not have wanted to entrust me with the kind of money that they had to for the kind of corporate events I was doing. And I think timing is everything. Timing is everything. So I really don't think there's anything I would have done differently. I often used to say, oh, because I enjoy being an entrepreneur so much, I wish I had started it earlier. But honestly, my life as a corporate person was also, I mean, I had a good experience in the corporate world. So for me, no regrets, no regrets.
No regrets, all right. I have someone who wants to ask a question. Stella, I'd like to ask a question. Can we unmute her, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can we see you, Stella?
Can you see me?
Yes, I'm seeing your photo. I want to see your face. I don't want to be answering questions from ghosts.
No, but if you can see the photo, that's me. Okay, Ms. Yewande, interestingly, I knew about you a long time ago with your story, your book, God's Waiting Room.
Okay.
It was an interesting one. At that time, I was always having miscarriage. My pastor, Pastor Nkechi Ene, was like, all of you get this book and read it and read her story. It was quite interesting anyway. And that's when I knew about you and also gotten into WIMBIZ as well, when I knew of WIMBIZ. So you've done so well. Congratulations on being on so many boards. Yeah, congratulations. You're an achiever. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what I want to ask is, what criteria do you look at for? Because you said it's good to be on the board of startup. So what criteria would you be looking at for, on onboarding startup?
Well, I mean, I think for me, first of all, the interest. Are you interested in what they're doing? And then, like the thing is, I don't know if you're a business or if you're a professional. I mean, as an entrepreneur, there is no business that at the beginning you can say for sure is going to be an absolute success or it's going to be a failure. Business is a risk. So are you interested in it? I mean, as I spoke about corporate leisure, I was on that board from, when was it? 2015. I mean, almost 15 years. And they had a very turbulent, but a very interesting journey. I mean, and the kind of things that, caused the company not to survive were not things to do with how the board was run, they were just external factors. So, are you interested in it? If you're interested in it, if you're interested in what they do, go for it, because you don't know how the journey will turn out. And that is part of the beauty of the experience of being a director, birthing something, watching it grow, and being part of that process that enables it to grow. And yes, it may succeed and we're all excited, but yet at the end of the day, it may fail. But that is the journey of an entrepreneur, and that's the risk you take. So for me, I think being interested in what they do is probably for me and then, as I've always said, the quality of the people who are on the board and the people who will be running the company, so that you will know that at least it will not be for a lack of rigor or prudence or diligence that the company did not work. That's what I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that question, Stella. Now, Isabella Okabwe is asking, what are the qualities you look for in the board members of Eventful? So if you were to get in new directors on your board, what will you be looking for?
Isabella, it's actually so amazing that you asked that question, because I am actually in the process of getting a new board, because the plan is I'm going to be retiring next year. I'm handing over to my DMD, so there'll be a younger, I think they need a younger board. The first thing I would look for is integrity. I think that is the most essential quality. The person must be a person of integrity, somebody who what he says is what he will do, somebody who knows right from wrong and will stay on the path of right, somebody who's, you can go to bed with what they tell you. You don't have to worry if they say that it is daylight. You have to check whether it is night. So I think for me, honesty, truthfulness, and integrity is key. I think what they can bring to the board, what am I looking for in Eventful? I'm looking for people who are interested in the entertainment space. I'm looking for people who are futuristic about it, who can think even more deeper outside the box than I can, who can take the company to a new level. So it's people who have that competence and who have that helicopter view, who can really see the future, who can say things that people will be like, how can you? I remember when I started this business in 1989, people thought I was crazy. I remember a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, came and said, Yewande, you went to Cambridge University. You want to go and start doing, you're a DGM in a bank. Are you mad? So I want people like that, people who can see the future and know that the future is big, and so integrity, interest, competence, thinking outside the box, and people who are team players, people who will, who have values, who their values are the same as mine. The things that are important to me are important to them. Professionalism is very, very important. So those are the qualities off the top of my head that I think I'd be looking for. And I would be looking at women. In fact, I was funny enough, I was talking to my sister about it yesterday, and I said, you know what, it would be great to just have a 3-women board, and then let's just only the management be men. Let's turn things around for a change.
That sounds really nice and interesting. All right, so looking for someone who will take the company to the next level. So will you be looking for your company to be quoted on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange, London Stock
Who
Exchange.
knows? Who knows? Maybe that's what, maybe they will take it there. I don't have that time anymore. I've taken it to where I can. So maybe the new breed, they will be the ones to take it there.
Right. So I have Fola Sheton who wants to ask a question. Fola Sheton, are you ready? Admin, please unmute her.
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes, I can.
We can.
Thank you, Mrs. Zaccheaus. This has been a really insightful session. My question is really around, being in a male-dominated board, especially with very strong men. How do you ensure that your voice is heard without coming across as being too aggressive?
Yeah, and we always worry about that. And I think we need to stop worrying about it. We're always worrying. Even when this lady was going to do her vice presidential debates, there was all that talk about, angry black woman, don't go there and be aggressive, don't go there. So it's just this thing that we're all having to deal with when women are there. I think when you're there, just be yourself and speak up. Because yes, when you're the only female on a board, what tends to happen is that you're right. You might get drowned down. You might get they're talking and you don't want to be rude, and they don't care. They don't care about being rude. When you're speaking, somebody will just cut in. Just say very quietly, I haven't finished, Mr. X. Very politely. But the way and manner with which you will say it, they'll know you mean it, and they'll allow you to finish your piece. So I think the way to do it is just to be firm and assertive without being quarrelsome or or argumentative. And I think, as I've said, you need to be yourself. Be yourself, but do not let anybody, bring you down. And as I always say, whenever you have the opportunity, and I'll tell you 2 instances, I said I'd share that during the Q&A, where I have been able to bring women on boards. On the board of Hartley's, I was the only woman, I was the chairman. And I'm like, how do you have a supermarket board? And then there are 4 men and 1 woman. What are you people doing? So the minute one of the board members was going, I said to the company, it's got to be a woman who is in retail. And I was able to bring somebody on who is in retail, and I don't know, she might be on this call, Yewande, and she's added so much value to the company because, we are women. You can't have a board of a supermarket and they're only men. And then another board, the microfinance board that I'm on, one of the women who is on it, and because it's a women-focused board, they actually have quite a few women on it, so which is good. But one of the women had just been got a public sector job, so she was no longer able to, be on the board. And I was racking my brain because they sort of said the kind of person they wanted. I was racking my brain. Who? And then another lady on the board now called me, and I said, why is she calling me? We're sitting next to each other. And then she said, read your message. And then on the message, she has said to me, what do you think of so? And immediately I said, yes, let's do it. You say it and I'll support you. That's what the men do. You will be there thinking nobody's saying anything. They're sending messages privately to each other. So she very calmly said, as if she just brought it out of the top of her head, oh, but what do you think of? And I said, excellent, absolutely. She'll be fantastic. Next week, we've got her on the board. So that's the way to do it. So we have to just be able to be as smart as the men and make sure that at every opportunity, we get women on the board so that we won't be the lone voice there. Okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Right. So some of the comments coming out now here, it says forceful is not aggressive. And even if aggressive, so with a question mark. And then another is saying that this is not only enlightening, but fun as well. Thank you, Mr. Zaccheaus, for making it fun. And then another person says here that we always worry about that, about being called aggressive.
Yes.
I think it's time we stop worrying about that, being aggressive. Yeah. And this is Sada saying that.
Yeah. Somebody who wants me to do something for her. She wants me to speak. I said, oh, Mrs. Zaccheaus, you inspire me. You're this. But you know what? You are a bully. I said, hey, why am I a bully? Because I tell people that you need to do what is right. And because I don't take nonsense from people. You can say bully, but I don't see it as bully. I see it as just doing things the right way and making sure that things are, every time you are assertive, every time you're courageous, you're bold, people don't like it because they still want women to be the simpering, whining, just stay quietly in your position. It's 2020 now. It's too late for that.
Correct. All right. So we have Helen Ikwamosa, who would like to ask a question, and thereafter Judith Asongwa can ask hers. So Helen Ikwamosa, please. I'm trying to see if I've been nominated. Good
Yes,
afternoon.
I love your photo, but I want to see your face.
Okay.
Show me your face.
All right. Good afternoon, Mrs. Zaccheaus.
Good afternoon.
And it's so nice to be here. It's so lovely to hear you talk. Thank you so much. You've been an inspiration for so many years.
Oh, wow.
Right from God's waiting room until now. So when I saw that you were going to be here today, I was so excited.
Oh, thank you.
Now for my question, you mentioned that part of the reason that you were a lawyer, but you had to leave to get into the bank because, I mean, you didn't think that going to court was your thing. But then part of the reason you were invited to most of the boards because your legal background. So I really like to know, how did you keep abreast with your legal side?
Okay, very interesting. You know, the legal side, you know, it's like whatever you study, you know it forever. You use it in everything. I use my law in my events business. We're always doing agreements. We're always doing things, terms and conditions. You will always use what you have. And like on the boards, sometimes, I mean, when they have a constitution they want to reverse, who is the lawyer in the house? And then they throw it at you. Even at the WIMBIZ meeting yesterday, they were still saying, who is the lawyer? So, you know, you still get to use your law, but whether I'm keeping abreast of it like that, no, I don't think I'm keeping abreast, but I'll tell you the truth. Now that as I'm winding down in the company, because, you know, as I've said, full-time entrepreneur, it's really tough to run your business, do all these other things and still be as well informed as you should be. But it's something I try to do. I mean, interestingly enough, one of the things I thought I might be able to do when I retire is arbitration. And so a couple of years ago, I went and started the arbitration exams. And, you know, I thought, you know when they tell you that exam is open book, you think it'd be so easy. I almost died. So after the part one, I said, okay, let's hold that one there. So the thing is, you keep trying. You just keep trying, and you read books, and you keep abreast with the news. I mean, like I know now that there's new Kama. I know I'm going to have to read it because I'm on so many boards. So the thing is that you don't forget what you've learned, but you just have to through the newspapers, through the news, through articles, through the internet, I mean, and through, you know, gatherings, you know, you just try and keep abreast. But I'm not going to say to you that I'm sort of 100% the lawyer. I will ask you to go and see if you have a very serious legal problem. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. All right, Judith, can you ask your question, please? Judith Asongwa. Okay. Judith, can you ask your question, please? Can you hear me?
Did she not write it in the chat? I think I saw something. Okay, she's joined. She's just joined again.
Yes. Judith, have you asked your question, please?
No, I haven't. Can
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I can hear you. I just
okay. So Judith, please ask your question.
Okay, I just said. Hold on. It looks like.
Judith, can you hear me?
Do you have two devices on?
Yes.
Right, so before
you need to switch one because you're echoing.
Yes, please switch one off. All right.
Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't want to miss anything. So thank you very much.
Ahead.
You know how this networks are.
Yes.
So can you hear me?
Yes, I can, clearly. I can hear you.
Okay, so I'd just like to say a very big thank you for agreeing to come to talk to us. And you're quite inspiring with all you have done. And we're just hoping to be like you. And my question is this. You've seen it all. Tokenism, merit, everything. Please, is there any advantage, solid advantage that women have on board? Because in as much as we're underrepresented, I also believe there is something
unique we're bringing to the board. So you might have the secret now to share with us what we really need to do at that board to get ahead, even though we're latecomers, but what can we be seen to be doing or adding to the board that will make us stand out and bring that ladder down for more women to join the board and for them to want us to join them. Thank you very much.
Honestly, the answer to that is so simple. I said it and I'll say it again, just be yourself. Because the reason you were appointed is because of some qualities they have seen in you. Just go there and shine with those qualities. I think it's important. What I find about women on boards is that women are a lot more intuitive. Any board that I've been on, I realize that it's the women who pick up on little nuances that can become something really important. Things that men would just sort of, I can't think of something that comes to mind as an example, but typically I find that it is the women that will notice the little things that really, if it isn't caught or nipped in the bud, can become an issue. So just be yourself. Be yourself as you would be if you're an entrepreneur in your business and you notice that something is happening. Sales are going down here. Why? Be yourself as you would be if you work for a corporate organization and you know that there's a reason why this performance is not going well. So for me, I think just continue to excel because, as I've said, let them put you there for tokenism. It's okay. But when you get there, excel, prepare. I remember it was Mr. Obel Tudeko, the group chairman of First Bank. He came to speak to us one time in WIMBIZ, and he said that the women on all the First Bank boards are excellent, that you can't get a thing past them, that all the women, he's not even talking only about the chairman, that they will prepare. They're so prepared when they come for the meetings. As I tell you, even though I was coming to talk to peers, I prepare. I don't take anything for chance. I went and dug out all the old files and looked through my files to remind myself of things. Prepare. Be there and let it show that you have prepared. Be there and be knowledgeable. Be there and be able to add value. And I think, honestly, once you're adding value, you'll be indispensable. So just be there. And I don't think it's something we have to struggle or work at like that. I think the fact that all of you are on this webinar means that you are naturally people who want to do well. You are naturally people who want to excel and will excel. So just go there and be yourself and enjoy it. Because, if you look at it as too much as, I'm going to carry this burden of being a token woman on the board, go there and just enjoy the process. Life is fun. That's my advice.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's give it to Chubelue Azukaigo. She would like to ask a question. Can you please ask a question?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ugo. Thank you very much, Mrs. Zaccheaus. It's been really interesting to just listen to you.
Thank you.
In talking, I see that, it's one thing, you're really engaged in what you do, and that just comes out of how you speak about it. So I really wanted to ask that, are there times, or has there been a time where on the board you have been one dissenting voice? The direction is in one space, and then when we talk about intuition and intuitiveness with women, you realize that may not be the best decision to take or the best way to go, but you're the one person on this side. How has it worked for you? Because we're really enjoying and benefiting from the kind of conversations you're putting on the table. Thank you.
I think the thing to do when you find that you're the only one is to not let them take a decision in haste. So if there's something I'm strongly convicted about, I'm going to defer it onto the next meeting. And I'm just going to ask that we can't take that decision because, really for a board, boards never really like to put things to vote, good boards. They like to have everybody agree. So when you have a board where there's always dissension and let's vote and people are lobbying to make sure this person is voting for them, boards typically like there to be consensus. So I think what is important is if one feels strongly about a decision, let us defer it. And that has happened, in one of the boards. I mean, there was some issue with the accounts. Okay, I was telling you, sometimes I don't know how much you can say that's revealing confidential information, so I have to be careful. But just imagine that maybe, the people who were there before you had presented some accounts that hadn't been approved, and you're a bit worried that, are these accounts dodgy? Are these accounts okay? So you just say, let's take a decision at this meeting. Let's wait to another meeting. So you have time to take it to somebody who is more knowledgeable than you and who you can trust and who can give you good advice and good judgment, or you insist that the board, that the management go back and do more rigor, go back and bring you more information that will convince you. So the thing is, when you're the lone dissenting voice, don't be railroaded into a decision. Always insist that, okay, I see that the rest of you feel this way. I am not convinced, but I think what we need to do is we need to step back, take some time, get some more information so that by the time we take that decision, all of us will be in agreement. That's what I would advise. I hope that helps.
Yes, that helps a lot. Thank you. And I mean, don't be railroaded. And in your experience, starting from the starting the position of so when this happened, were you the chairman of the board or chairman of the board, or were you a member of the board? And did you have issues from the other members of the board? So in the sense that maybe they really wanted to close that, and you made sure it didn't happen.
One thing I always said is always make sure anybody you're on there are people of like mind. So there are people who know that there may be one day when they will feel that way. So they will want to be given that same courtesy of allowing you time to get more information. Always important. Now, if you're on a board that is not people of like mind, they will just shut you down and they'll just say, okay, let's take it to vote, and they'll vote you out. But then what happens in that kind of situation is you insist it is recorded in the minutes that you did not agree. So don't let them come and put it was a unanimous decision. So if that happens, if you're on the kind of board that there's that kind of maybe rancor or non-agreement, but that is why it is so important that whatever board you're on, as I said, I said it at the beginning, don't let us look at ourselves as people of a lesser god. Just because we want to be on boards does not mean we have to jump onto every board. You must make sure the people there are people who think like you, who relate like you, and who their values are like yours, so that at those sort of difficult times, you will be able to resolve issues with wisdom and with equanimity.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Really good.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay, let me quickly read out what is on the chat box, and then Stella and Shola will then ask their questions. Maureen says, reality is, as a woman, you are drowned out. They will cleverly try to keep you from speaking. Is it wise to remain on such board that obviously is not ready for a woman, especially when the woman's psyche is negatively affected?
No, so sorry, her question was that, should she stay on a board where they're drowning her voice out?
Correct. Especially when she's been affected psychologically as well.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, I mean, if you're being affected psychologically, then maybe it's something you need to consider. But if you were not, I would say just dig your heels in and stay there. I would dig my heels in, I will stay there, and I will make my voice heard. It's very, very important. But if it is affecting you psychologically, then that means probably you didn't really consider the type of people that we're going to be on that board before you went into it, which is why no matter how much we want to be on boards, ensure that the boards are people who are of like mind. Very, very important. So, but if your mental health is involved, then obviously I would not recommend that you stay there and be battered by these men.
Yes, thank you so much. Maureen, I hope you got that. Now I'll ask Stella to please ask her question. Can the admin unmute Stella, please?
Okay, once again, thank you. My question is it okay to be on a board that is rendering same service as your organization?
That is rendering the same service as your organization?
Yeah, for example, you are into entertainment. Is it okay to be on same board as another company that renders same service as entertainment?
No, I mean, I don't even think they would invite you because they wouldn't want you to come and see how they're, so, you could be, now let me put it this way. You could be in entertainment and let's say I'm in events, okay? Now, maybe there's somebody who is in movies, okay? And then there's somebody who is in theater arts. Now, my events business is not competing with her movie business or competing with theater arts business. So we could be on each other's boards. However, if we're both into events, clearly we cannot be on each other's boards because there'll be a serious conflict of interest because I would know exactly how she's earning her money, how she's doing all that. So I don't think you can be on exactly the same board, But, if there's no conflict of interest, but clearly, yes, in the same business, because sometimes, you remember that's what I was saying when they asked me what kind of people I'd like on my board. I'd like people who are in the entertainment business because they need to know about it. However, I would also like somebody who is strong on corporate governance because I still want that business to be run properly. So, there are many things you will consider. Okay?
All right. Thank you.
So conflict of interest is what is key.
Okay. All right. Shola, can you ask your question now? Shola Ishmael.
Yes. Good evening, Mrs. Zaccheaus, and thank you very much. I'd like to pick up on the that concept of knowing the quality and the type of people on the board being of like mind. Especially if it's a startup, if you don't really know the people, is there any room for, let's say, for instance, a gut feel? You think this is a good business and you don't really know the people, but they feel like good people. Or it's an absolute no-no if you cannot really identify who they are, stay away from it.
The beauty of the digital world now is that you can know anybody. I mean, there's so many people that you just want to know about them, you Google them. You see what they've done. And then when you see what they've done, you see the companies they've worked with, you get in touch with, that's the beauty of having a network. You get in touch with the person who knows them to say, what do you think about this person? There was somebody who asked me, there was somebody they wanted to put on a board, and the person is extremely competent, but I knew that person's character, would cause a lot of trouble for the person who's bored. And you would say, don't do it. So even though they know the person in terms of the technical competence and all that, as I've always said to you, reputation and behavior is also very important. So for me, I don't think you have to know them as in they're your best friends. Absolutely not. I mean, some of the boards I'm on, I may have known, at least once I know the chairman and a couple of other people. The others, you can Google them, and then when you get there, you find out who they are. So I'm not saying that you must know them intimately, but you must just know about them and find out about them. And as I've said, it's so easy now with the digital world. So it's not a no-no, absolutely not a no-no. Yeah.
Okay.
Gut feelings are important for entrepreneurs. That's how we get by everything. So
thank you.
Right. Thank you for that. And then Tommy is asking, or she's saying that I have seen some boards where one or two members dissent strongly about a decision, and the board still went ahead. The concerned directors insisted that the company secretary note their dissent, which was refused. What do you do in this case if you are one of the directors who didn't agree with the decision? That is Tommy asking.
Tommy, if I were you, I would know A, it's a time to resign from that board, and B, I would do a letter to the Corporate Affairs Commission or whoever is in charge, and I will say that, because it's illegal. You cannot not. I'm a director. I have a right, if there's a dissenting opinion, for me to say I want to be recorded as being dissenting. And if they now refuse, that means that if that issue causes a problem in future, you will be there as one of the people who agreed. And then you say, but I told them, who's going to believe you? So I think at that point you should resign from that board, because if a board is that, a board that is, there's no integrity. I mean, clearly a board can take a decision even if some people don't agree. But the minimum you must do is, if that person insists, I would like my dissent to be noted, you must note it. And if you will not note it, I don't think that's a board you want to be on, because they'll start with that and it's going to get worse. So that's my rather blunt advice.
I agree with you, absolutely. And then Sadia is asking, is Hadley's Abuja in the works? Planning to open the supermarket?
I'll talk to them. We're still doing Lagos, but I'm sure that a time will come soon, so I shall bear you in mind.
All right. Okay, so that brings me to another question I'd like to ask. In one word, what comes to mind when someone says, boardroom experience? I mean, we've heard people, we've seen comments, different comments. Some people find it enjoyable, stimulating. Some find it torturous. In the case of our friend who just made a comment about it affecting her mental health. But for you, what comes to mind when you talk about board experience?
Learning and growing. That's what comes to my mind. On every board I've been on, I have learned and I have grown. And I don't think, and you know, whether you learn in pain or you learn, you know, in ease, you learn. So for me, and that's really, you know, the essence of life, to learn and to grow. So that's what I think I have taken from all the boards I've been on. You know, wisdom in so many different facets, and knowledge in so many different facets, and friendships and relationships. So for me, I think it's been a good journey. It's been a good journey. Yeah, it's been a good journey. I mean, it's like life. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. It's like life. There'll be some good times. There'll be some bad times. There'll be some nasty people. There'll be some good people. It's just like life. So really, just make the best of it.
Right. Okay. That brings me to another question that a lot of women face. We have our skill set, right? And it's not 100%. Like in your case, you said you're not a numbers person, right?
Yep.
But of course, when it comes to, you know, being intuitive, when it comes to the legal portion, you're very comfortable. But very often, when there's an opportunity to get on a board, a woman wants to tick all the boxes, 100%, all right? Meanwhile, their male counterpart, who has just 55% of the skill set that the woman has, will boldly go and apply for a role. But the woman is being hesitant. Oh, can I make it? Will they accept me? I'm not strong in numbers. Will that work against me? So please, what do you think about it? Because I think it's what a lot of women are facing today.
Yes, it's that, what do they call it? Is it an imposter syndrome? We just think that we're really not as good as they think we are. But guess what? We are. And that's the thing about men. You know, somebody once said that there was an opening in a company, and like out of maybe the 20 qualities, the man had only 2. He applied. A woman had 8. And because she didn't have the 10 things, she didn't apply.
Yes.
We need to get out of that syndrome. And you know what all the people I spoke to, because you know I said I chatted with the people who had invited me on board, is that anybody who's putting me on a board is not putting me there because they want me to be the chairman of the audit committee. They know that that is not my strength. They've said the reason that they've put me on one of these boards is that I have run a good business. I have demonstrated competence in my own chosen profession, in my own chosen entrepreneurial pursuit. That is the reason they put me there. So, you know, that is why I said at the beginning, and I said, I'm not sure WIMBoard will be too happy with me, that we don't have to kill ourselves trying to develop every single skill, because you're not going to need every single skill. Even in your work that you are now, you need every single skill. So just hold the one you have that is great. Hold it to a point that you're so visible, that you are the thought leader, that if people, I dare to say with all great sense of humility, I doubt if people say events and they say you should name 3 people and my name won't come up there. Do you understand? So that is where you have to try and be. That is where you have to try to get to. And that is something you do internally, not really with anybody outside. Just build your business, focus on your profession, grow yourself, excel in what you do. And, you know, let's take it from there. So that's what I think.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So you had to pivot from being a banker, a lawyer, and these have been your comfort zones, okay, to being an entrepreneur. How did the transition go?
How did it go? Quite smoothly. I told you how I decided to go from law into banking. I guess, I don't know if the word is restless, but I know what I want. And if I don't have it, I know I don't have it. I find it easy to make the move. A lot of people say to me, how do you know? How do you know what your passion is? How do you know? If I'm not happy, then it's not working. You know, I mean, when I was in the bank, I'd gone away, you know, I mean, as you know, from my books, I had a long gap between my son and my daughter. And by the time I came up from maternity leave, I was just so disgruntled. I was just so unhappy in the bank. I mean, on Sundays, I didn't want to go to work. I hated it. And, you know, I had trained the person next to me so well. She could really do the job. I knew I had to make a change. And that was when I decided what would that change be. And I also knew I didn't want to become an MD of a bank. I knew I didn't want to set up a legal practice. But I knew that what I had in me, and maybe because of my parents who were entrepreneurs, was that spirit of entrepreneurship. And that was how I moved into the entrepreneurial space. So for me, I think everybody gets to a point where they know, I can't go on like this. There must be more to life. I need to change. I need to do something to make life more meaningful. And I think that fear of the unknown is what we need to get over. We need to just decide that we're going to do it, even if we're afraid. and just do it.
Yes.
And and then you could 80% of the time you can be pleasantly surprised that it actually works out well for you. So it's just overcoming that fear. Overcoming that fear.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll quickly read out some of the comments that we have in the chat box. To Tommy's question, Tommy says, thank you for the response. It validates my views as well. And that Tommy was one that asked the question about noting down a dissenting view in the by the company secretary. And then Mercy says, dear Elizabeth Argo, please, where do you draw the line? Is there a scientific or objective measurement of toxicity? So, well, I think it has to do with whether you should remain on the board where you are being affected psychologically or not. But we all agree that mental health issues remain very important. And if a board is affecting your mental health state, it's best you quit and leave. We have another comment here from Maureen who says, true. And the board sometimes will accept such a candidate on the board, yet if it was a woman, she will not be considered at all. Here we're talking about having all the skill sets and ticking the box. The board will accept the man. All right, so any more questions from the ladies? If you have more questions, please, we have some few minutes to go. But while we're waiting for that, I can ask a question of my own. Mrs. Zaccheaus, I had to go and buy your books. When I heard that you were going to come on. And I see that you have different people's testimonies. What propelled you to write this book? I know it's been a blessing to hundreds and thousands of women, not just in Nigeria, but globally. What propelled you and what did you aim to achieve by writing the book?
Okay, very interesting question. One I wasn't expecting since it hasn't anything to do with boards, but I'm happy to answer. Now, I got married in 1989, and in fact, immediately after my marriage, I got pregnant and had my son 9 months later. My wedding was October, my son was born end of June. So I never imagined in my wildest dreams that I would have trouble conceiving. And then to have number 2 became a real problem. Anyway, to cut a long story short, it took 9 long years before my daughter came. And during that time, of course, you go through a roller coaster of emotions. I mean, you get a lot closer to God because you know how it is when you're looking for something. And people used to say, well, Yewande, what's your own? At least you have a son. I mean, there are people who don't even have children. Why is your own like this? But you know, God decides to use who he wants to use. And I think he just felt that I would be the person he would use to, you know, to write these books. And I promised God that, you know what, when I have this child, I need something, because I found that maybe during my own journey, there wasn't really anything you found was like things to do with, you know, supernatural childbirth, would be about American stories. That's something that would be resonate to home. And, you know, even after I had my daughter, I didn't write that book immediately. Then what happened was I got pregnant again and lost the pregnancy. That was when I remember that I owed God a debt. And then I wrote the book with passion and fire. And I think all the women who I got their testimonies at that time, if they had known how far the book they would have gone, maybe they wouldn't have put their stories there. But the book just became an answer to what so many people were looking for. I never planned to write 4. I was just doing that book 1 to fulfill all righteousness and get back on track with God. But the demand was there. Then people would come to me, oh, I have this testimony for you. And then it just became a ministry. And I'm happy to announce, and I may as well say it here, that I'm actually in the process of producing a movie which is inspired by the books, which by God's grace will be coming out next year, called The Wait. So I've now become an executive producer of movies. So if you thought I was multitasking, that's going to be my story. So, but because I just felt that it was important, you know, people read these books and they're still in demand. In fact, in Lantana, it's one of the only 2 Nigerian books that are on their best-selling books all the time, because it is a need, you know. And I realized that, you know, we need to get it to more people. You know, we need to get it wider spread. And I believe God just spoke to me and said, yeah, you need to do a movie. And he's made a way for that. So I'm hoping that by early next year, it will be out. It will inspire more people.
I think that has elicited more hands coming up. So, Kaima, over to you. Can you please unmute Kaima Ohiswa, please?
I'm sure Ugozi will want us to get back on track. We better start talking about boards again.
Oh, it's all related.
It's all related.
Good afternoon, Hetty.
Good afternoon, Lima.
Nice to see you both again.
Thank you.
I want to start with a big thank you for such an exciting and very impactful session, and especially for this last part where you were again vulnerable to tell us about your child journey. Yes, and the loss. Yeah, God continue to bless and keep you.
Amen.
Yes, I actually just wanted to share something that, funny enough, because I say I don't believe in coincidences and things happen for a reason. So just as we were, and I'm listening, so please don't think, I just saw something on my screen, and it spoke exactly to what we're talking about. Someone posted, to women who are labeled aggressive, and I think words matter, and they help to shape and frame our experiences. So sometimes when we're feeling hit by what people are saying, to just remember that it's in those words. So instead of thinking of it as aggressive, let's keep on being assertive. If you're told you're bossy, you're leading. If you're difficult, usually you're called difficult when you're speaking and insisting on the truth. And then if you're too much, keep taking up space. Let's not shrink like people wanted Kamala Harris to do. And then if you're supposedly awkward, just keep asking the hard questions. And it just ends with, please don't shrink yourselves to make others comfortable. And that's, yes, I have experienced on the journey of my work experience and even on being on the board. It's just to keep reminding myself that that shrinking woman who's quiet is not necessarily what is needed in the room. And even if you were, even if you were put on the board as a tokenism, it doesn't matter. Take it and run with it. Just be yourself. It may take you, as you get older, you realize that be yourself. It's for your sanity, be yourself.
Yeah. And you know the thing, all the positive, no, just to say all the positive ones you've said, that is how they'll describe a man. And then that's the negative ones is how they'll describe a woman. Do you understand? An aggressive woman, but a leading man, so that's it. So we really should not bother ourselves. We need just do what you have to do and get there. Yeah.
Wow, so many comments. My chair, Ngozi says, Yewande, breath of fresh air.
In fact, Etsy, I don't know how you got that one out of me, but I think I was just totally unprepared for that question, so I spilled the beans.
Yes, you got caught up in the moment, right?
I did, but it's good. So at least, so when we start advertising, all of you will be able to say we first heard of it at the WIMBIZ webinar.
The other day, someone told me that Mrs. Awoshika is going to feature in a movie.
Yes,
one of those movies. And there was like yes. So hopefully you will also feature in one of your movies, right?
Who knows? Who knows?
Yes, that is all about multitasking. Then someone here says, big congratulations, very well done. And another says, very cheerful session. Shubu Giwamu says, excellent, Mrs. Zaccheaus, authentic and inspiring, well done.
Thank you.
And then Olajumoke Oyewale says, what a brilliant end to a powerful story. All the best with the movie, Mrs. Zaccheaus.
Thank you. Thank you.
I believe Jumoke is Imo Oyewale's daughter, right?
I know,
okay,
I know.
Maybe I don't know. And then someone, Omoyami says, thank you, ma'am. Be yourself. Don't shrink yourself. The most amazing place to be is WIMBIZ. So on that note, I think it would be a good segue to ask Mrs. Zaccheaus Yewande to give us a final piece of advice. We've actually been enjoying ourselves.
You've overshot the time.
Absolutely, we've overshot the time. But because the women are so keen, the mentees are so keen to get so much information, that was why we didn't want to cut it off. But what would be your final words to us before we end the session?
First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone. I'm seeing all the comments on the chat, and thank you very much. I have been inspired by the women myself. So the summary, my wrap up, I've said it a million times, I'll say it again. Be the best at what you do. You will get noticed there. Be the best. Demonstrate competence, demonstrate integrity, demonstrate professionalism. You will be noticed. Be visible. I mean, be visible. When I said be visible, I thought, well, you can be doing well and nobody will know you. But no, if you are doing well, people will know you. So be visible, volunteer, be a thought leader, speak at seminars, volunteer to do things. Let them know that when they're talking about that, your industry, when they're talking about that, your profession, you must always be top of mind because you're so good at what you do, okay? Remember that board appointments are by invitation. You don't apply to them. So just do what you know how to do. When that opportunity comes, somebody will remember you. You will tick that box, whether it's gender, it's region, it's competence. Remember, it's an invitation. Timing is absolutely key. Don't be in a hurry to be on a board. If I was on any of these boards 10 years ago, I could have added no value. I was too busy building my company, seeing how I was going to do my succession plan, making sure that I stayed ahead of the business. It's timing. So don't be in a hurry to be on a board. And even if you are, start with friends and family. Start young. I mean, it's very important. Integrity is so, so important. I mean, your reputation is key. You can tick every box of excellence and professionalism. If people do not speak well of you, you will never get onto a decent board. So make a good name for yourself. Make a good name for yourself. And remember, go there. It's not about the prestige. Forget all the huge telecos and banks and everything. It's not about the perks and all that. They may come, they may never come. It's about adding value. It's about learning. It's about growing. It's about giving back. And most of all, enjoy yourself. That's my last tip. Thank you. I have enjoyed this.
So awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So on behalf of WIMBIZ and the mentees, I wish to thank you for sharing your incredible story. I thank you most sincerely and trust that this story will help our mentees, women on boards and women who inspire to sit on boards, gain access to the critical experiential knowledge and resources they need to hone their board readiness and leadership skills. So thank you very much, ma'am. And God bless you.
Amen.
Thank you. So the
mentees,
can we just do a virtual clap for Mrs. Zaccheaus?
Thank you.
Well
thank
done.
you.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. So now we are going to talk about the interactive session, and then we're going to have a short break if we are done with the interactive session in time. So our second speaker on my journey to the boardroom, Mr. Bismarck Rewane, will join us at 5:30. So we're going to have this interactive session, and then we can then have a short break before Bismarck joins us. All right. So the mentees, again, I welcome you, and I trust you have been having a great time in this program. It was put together deliberately to meet your needs and to help you in your aspiration to sit on boards. Last week, we had the induction, and when we did the onboarding, we had two iconic women come to speak to us, Mrs. Funke Oshibodu, who talked about building a board-ready profile, as well as Mrs. Awuneba Ajumogobia talk about personal branding and board effectiveness. So I'm going to make this interactive. So I want to then ask, what have you started doing after the session last week? So I'm opening it up for you guys. Let's talk about it. Mrs. Oshibodu, when she talked to us, actually said we should review our profiles, we should update our online profile, and she actually mentioned that we could drop our CVs on a particular website. I'm not going to mention the name, but I need one of the mentees to tell me which website she mentioned, so that way we know that you're actually practicing what you have done. So I already have some hands up, and and I'll ask that the Secretariat unmutes Okaima Keke Ohizwa, who wants to ask a question. All right, KK, over to you.
Oh, hello again, and thanks. I'm not going to the website because that's, I'll leave that for someone else to provide. I just wanted to say what I had started to do, because that was where your question started from. Okay. And it was just that realization that, it was a realization that there was a need to make the CV actually look like, I know Mrs. Zaccheaus today mentioned the fact that you likely are not going to be, you're not going to apply to a board, or you'll be invited to it. But that also speaks to the need to then have the CV in such a way that it speaks to the need of the board. So the first thing I've started to do, which coincidentally was something I was working on even before we started the session, was actually to look at that CV and to work on it to make it reflect the board experiences this one has had that will speak to any opportunity that could come up. Right. So okay. Yeah, talking about the qualities one here. Yeah. So it's not just saying I've worked at City, I've worked at Transcorp hotels, I'm at PAR now, but what exactly are the skills you have from this place that you can bring to any other board that you have, and then make it relevant. Exactly. So that if, yeah, so that's yes. What I've been working on. Thank you.
All right, thanks, KK. And don't forget, she also said you're not going to apply to a board as though you are applying for a job as a management staff. You have to bring your strategic initiatives to bear, things you have done. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And then I can see the answer to the question I asked. I see that Simbo, Beth, Oluwakemi, Feitolua, they've answered it, the board list, actually. Yes, she did mention. And guess what? I have dropped my CV in there. So what are you waiting for? So that's a challenge, so that by this time, when we come for the next program, we're going to ask the same question again. And we want to encourage you to update your CVs and put it out there. As long as you have the skill set, you have the knowledge, the skills, you have the interpersonal skills as well, you're eloquent, why not? All right. So Norma will also like to chip in. Nochi, please. And we unmute her for her to make her contribution.
Good evening. Actually, I was going to say the board list. I thought you wanted us to mention it. So, but
okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, but yes, the board list. But tell me, what have you done since the meeting last week? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but.
Thank you. Good evening. One of my key takeaways from our session last week was the fact that I can still marry my passion, my hobbies with my journey to the boardroom and my personal branding. And so that's something that I have gone ahead to keep working on rather than shelving it and thinking that the two could not, don't correlate. I really did appreciate the session we had and how the three personalities and their different backgrounds and their passions all came to play. And so that's something that did resonate with me. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I have Judith saying that she's writing her profile, okay, which is a good move. So what about your social media accounts? We have LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Have you, sorry? Oh, Stella, you want to say something?
Yeah, you said it. And I said I've started updating my profile on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah, on LinkedIn. I'm there currently as a professional, and also an entrepreneur in oil and gas. I have an oil and gas service company. So I'm also rebranding. We're working on that, our business. And then working on my profile on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. All right. Any other contribution? Anybody wanting to share what they've done? Yes, just to encourage ourselves that. Sorry, who is that? Olujumoke. Sorry, Olajumoke, you want to say something?
Yes, I was responding to you. I actually had one thing to say. It was also more of a tip as well. So first, thank you to WIMBIZ for the opportunity of actually having our induction pictures, because while you're updating your LinkedIn, the induction picture gave people an opportunity to see that you're part of this board training. And in even posting that in your personal LinkedIn profile, you know, the amount of support and the amount of likes and the amount of views you got just from that alone was actually pretty powerful.
Absolutely.
Last week for me. So that was a tip in terms of updating.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So Olajumoke, that's a very good point. So I think you ladies, when that picture that was taken at the induction, put it out there, all right? Because, I mean, it's something you have done. And make a comment and see how many likes you're going to get. And of course, that will even encourage more people to come join WIMBIZ. We're looking for people like every one of you here. And then I have a, so is it symbol saying that also found this, if anyone is interested. It's about the boardroomafrica.com, specifically focused on getting women on boards on the continent. Thank you very much, Symbol, for that. And Buki is saying, great tip, Olajumoke. So Buki, yes, I agree with you absolutely. Olajumoke gave us a very good tip. And then Mori Ogbona says, I updated my LinkedIn profile. I also wrote up my board profile. Excellent. I think that's the way to go. So any more contributions? Any additional advice? Thank you, Symbol. What you just posted, I think is an excellent one. Elizabeth says, oh, wow, Olajumoke, I'll put that collage in my LinkedIn. I think that's what everyone should do. Okay. Any more feedback?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. This is from Super Office.
Yes.
I also, I mean, I had this in the works.
I'm sorry, it would be nice for us to see the person talking. You want to put on your video, if you don't mind, please.
The connection here is not so great, so it'll disrupt everything.
Not so great. Okay, that's fine. Carry on.
I was saying that some of the women that I really like and aspire to be usually have Wikipedia pages. So not to toot my own horn, but I've commissioned someone to do a Wikipedia page for me with my information, for those who might be interested.
Okay, thank you very much. And then Elsie is advising that please tag WIMBIZ when you post the graphics on LinkedIn so we can share. Our handle is Women in Management, Business, and Public Service. So, all right. Now, I've just been told that Mr. Bismarck is on. Bismarck has just joined us. I didn't, well, one of Okaima said, okay. All right. So what we will do is we're going to quickly. Oh, hello. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for making it, Mr. Rewane. We appreciate your very tight schedule. All right. So just to get women to be ready, we're going to take 5 minutes, just 5 minutes of, you know, a break. And then everyone will come back at 4:52. 4:52, and then we kick off with Mr. Rewane's session. Thank you, ladies. So can we have the slides and the interlude that while we wait for the 5 minutes to be up?
All the things. I think it's the thing itself, but not.
Right. All right, so welcome back, everyone. Our second session will start off immediately is on my journey to the boardroom. And the speaker is Mr. Bismarck Rewane. So I'll just quickly read his bio before he takes the saddle. Mr. Rewane is the CEO of Financial Derivatives, and is a company he set up several years ago after he left the banking industry. He is well known in Nigeria. He studied economics in the University of Ibadan, and then he had a stint in banking. He worked with IMB, and then left subsequently to set up his financial derivatives company. Mr. Rewane is very well known because he's a thought leader, and he gives a lot of content, especially on macroeconomic space. Very often, a lot of the corporate organizations invite him to actually take a look at the crystal ball and give them the prognosis about the Nigerian economy. He's versatile, he's well-read, he's eloquent, and he sits on several boards. We have listed some of his board experience. He's on the board of Guinness, banks, oil and gas, and currently he's on he's part of the Nigerian Economic Group, who reports into the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So because of time, and we know Mr. Rewane has other commitments, I would like to bring him on immediately. So Mr. Bismarck Jemide Rewane, we invite you to please take on the presentation. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen hanging around. So this is the Ladies' Day. Let me start by saying I'm honored to be invited to speak about the journey to the boardroom. At least to this August gathering, I've been following the WIMBIZ organization, and I must say that they are well accomplished, they are focused, and they are actually adding value in building the confidence that are required for our women folk in this country. Let me start. I don't know if I'm being heard clearly. Let me start by saying that I looked at some statistics last night and said that we said a couple of things. One, that there are 10 million children out of school in Nigeria. And of these 10 million out of school in Nigeria, 6.5 million of them are girls. In the world, the number of women, I think in all, there are about almost 60 million children or something that are in that category, and 10% of the children out of school in Africa and in the world are Nigerian girls. Now, having said that, I also want to state some things clearly, that when you talk about education, you talk about persistence ratio. The people that start school in this country and the ones that end up after primary school, after secondary school, and after university, the persistence ratio drops. But it's quite interesting that the persistence ratio is much higher amongst men or boys than girls, not because the girls are not willing, but because the culture discriminates against them, and they feel they should go get married, go trade, and do so many things. But that mindset is changing. So that's one thing. Secondly, private consumption in Nigeria is about almost 70% of GDP, while government consumption is only 5%. But that 5% of government consumption dominates the economy. And private investment, for that matter, is only about 20% of total GDP. I'm saying this because I want you to understand, one, the odds before now have been stacked against women. Two, the odds are stacked against investment. And three, government has a more than fair role in what we call a fiscally dominant economy. Now, but has this always been this way? No. And so let's put some historical perspective. 4 decades ago, we had distinct compartments of stakeholders. There was a board, there were shareholders, there were boards, there was leadership teams in companies, there was management, and then there were others. 4 decades ago, or 5 decades ago, the corporate space was dominated by international companies. The trading space was even dominated by international companies and some Nigerian entrepreneurs. And so what you had was this. You had multinationals, you had joint ventures between multinationals and some Nigerians, and then you had indigenous family businesses. Then what activities did they participate? There was trading, light manufacturing, banking, insurance, and so on. Then something happened. General Obasanjo and Murtala Mohammed passed what they call the first, I think before then, there was an indigenization decree that required companies to sell part of their interest to Nigerian investors. Then there was a more aggressive, so there were 3 stages of indigenization, 1, 2, and 3. And most of the international bodies said that Nigerians couldn't raise the capital to buy the companies at those valuations. Now, so we had an arrangement where some of the indigenous companies appointed fronts, some of the indigenous companies carried out full indigenization, and some of the family businesses partnered with international companies. Some areas were left out, that is oil companies and other things. But because of the capital requirements, the government of Nigeria acquired majority interest in the banks and in the oil companies under the JB arrangements. So government ownership of majority interest in banks and others were situated. Then the second phase, and at this time, multinationals were still in light manufacturing, trading to some extent, and also in other businesses. What happened eventually was that the federal government now went into what they call the stage of privatization of state-owned enterprises. So they started selling their interest down first to parties that they found that they were comfortable with. But that is the stage that's the transition that Nigeria went from a country that had 2 distinct segments. 1, the government. 2, the colonial masters and their foreign interest. And 3, some indigenous companies like Adeola Odutola Enterprises, Ojukwu Transport, and so on. And they had quite a few of those ones. Now, but I'm setting this context so you can understand. And in all of these times, there was ownership, there was board, there was leadership, there was management, and then the other employees. Now, so the journey to the boardroom depended on at what time you looked at this thing. So, for example, 4 decades ago, it was impossible for you, no matter how good you were, for a manager to graduate to a point of being a director. The directorships were saved only for the British owners of those companies. If you're in Barclays Bank, Standard Bank, French and Anglo-French Bank, which is today UBA, British French Bank. And then there were the indigenous banks which were owned by, at that time. Now, so you were satisfied if you could retire as a manager or a general manager or assistant general manager. Then came the indigenization. And when the indigenization came and the government acquired, the government then appointed deputy managing directors in all the international banks and allowed the international owners to allow their chief executives to migrate, and then Nigerians took over. That was the beginning of the process in banking, in insurance, in the oil companies. And then at that time, because of government ownership, there was no guarantee that it was meritocratic. There were things like federal character, there were all sorts of interests. And don't forget, we had military government. So you had to be appointed because from Dodam Barracks, all you had to do was not to work, but to go and lobby to get appointed. That was then. Now, for people like us, we were content with being managers, rising to general managership, and never knew there was no path to a board seat. But something happened in my case. I was working for a chief executive of the largest merchant bank who was only 29 years old. I was much younger. And he was extremely aggressive in terms of he was determined and focused on how to build an institution. Don't forget, he owned nothing. The bank was government owned and First National Bank of Chicago as their partners. But he motivated us so much that he gave us opportunities. So one day, somebody came, I think there was a change of government, and some military governor had his guest house next to IMB. And some guy just strolled in with his slippers and his French suit. And he introduced himself as the governor of that state. And he came up and said he wanted to see the MD. He came to the MD and I said, okay, look, I'm a military governor of, that was Plateau State at that time. I said, we have a banking license and we want to set up a bank. And we want you, that is IMB, to become our technical partner because we cannot afford to bring a foreign technical partner. And we want you to come and help us set up a bank. And he made it clear, so I don't want the bank to be like any other indigenous bank which could fail. Therefore, this is what I'm asking you to do. Clearly from the beginning, one, you guys can only be technical partners if you own 40% of the bank. I said, okay, no problem. Two, you must guarantee that in 5 to 6 years, the bank will be floated in the public. And in the public space, you guarantee that at least 60 or 70% of the shares be sold to indigents of the state and not the state government. So we found that interesting. My MD said, well, this is another Nigerian thing. Anyway, go look at it. Our 20s. We talked to this governor and he directed us to the Commissioner of Finance. And then in a matter of 6 months, everything was structured and we were ready to go. We got the licenses, we got all the papers. Then something strange happened. Both the governor of the state and my MD got removed by the military. And so we had new people coming in to follow up. But my MD had already written down and said, well, you will structure this in and you will represent our interest on the board of this bank. So here I was, never been at a boardroom before, didn't understand what the boardroom dynamics was. But that was it. That was how, in a very strange set of circumstances, my MD said, go and do that. And not 2 months after making that decision, he was fired by the military. The governor himself was moved and was made an ambassador of Nigeria to Zimbabwe or somewhere in Southern Africa. So we now had to deal with new people, new governor, new MD, new EDs, and try to make them see the dream of the people who came up with this thing and how casually somebody who just wanted to make a mark did that. And that was how I first got into a boardroom and had to deal with indigenous state government officials whose goals were totally diametrically opposite with the goals of the man who invited us, and even the goals of the people that were there. So that became a major challenge. First of all, they were older than us. Secondly, they had different goals. Thirdly, they had different objectives, and they saw this as a way of making money and all sorts of things. So how do we get them, align them? Because going away was not a possibility. Many times, to be honest with you, we tried to walk out and say, look, forget it. We're not going to get involved in this. because they had all sorts of outrageous requests. They wanted award contracts, they wanted to do everything, and that was not in our DNA. So that was my first time, but it was a good baptism of fire. The bank got opened, we established it. We got the next phase of trying to float it on the exchange. Then domestic politics came into it. So, but long and short of it, it succeeded. The bank was a success, not without its own problems. And then the IMB then decided that they would do another one. So we then went into another bank, and then I was in charge of representing the bank on those affiliates. And that's how I got my feet wet as a director, representing this institution. Then subsequently, certain things happened. Family interests there were family interests in different investments, and I also got nominated to sit as family member representative on those boards through the trusts. Some of my older relatives had passed on, and then under the trust arrangement, I had to represent them. And then one thing led to the other. I left the bank and set up with some colleagues financial derivatives company, and at that point I started getting recognized for cerebral contribution, and people wanted value add. And as you went along, you started seeing that goals of boards, goals of multinational owners, goals of leadership, and goals of stakeholders, including what they call shareholders association, were in most cases misaligned. So as a board member, you try to make sure that there was alignment. But one thing I must mention is that in many years, no board members were not held accountable until the failed bank decree came. When the failed bank decree came, and then bank directors were being held and all locked in jail for what I could call negligence, or what they call potential vicarious liability, or not exercising due care in their duties. And so people started getting held until Sanusi's intervention, and we saw, even before then, bank directors and many directors started going to jail. So the responsibility and accountability started changing, and transparency requirements. Then auditors started, Enron came about, and so it became globally things like money laundering, things like accountability, things like insider trading, things like taking advantage of your position, abuse of office. So the responsibility of a director started getting more and more onerous and more transparent as time went on. And one thing is clear, that in all of these times, a lot of companies failed. A lot of institutions went under. A lot of companies and directors, I mean, we know what happened in Cadbury and for misreporting. So my hypothesis today is that, one, the transition to a more accountable society is irreversible. Two, statistically, we've been told, and I think that women are less likely to be involved in funny practices and less likely to have sticky fingers like their male counterparts. But even then, we've seen some ladies who have bucked that trend and have done some quite interesting things. So, I don't want to stereotype society into gender buckets. All I'm saying is that as we go along, there are what we call a demography. There's a transition of change. There's a metamorphosis of corporate bodies, and there's a question of ownership. And you can see it today. You can see today that we are talking today on Zoom, and that the market capitalization of Zoom is now more than 6 airlines put together. And Zoom was incorporated only about 5-6 years ago, and it has a price-earning ratio of over 1,500, which means that it's not going to make profit for a long time to come. But is it going to be reversed? No, it cannot be reversed. The stock price, the low of the stock price of Zoom is $60, and the high, it closed yesterday at $500. all in 52 weeks, from a low of $60 a share to $500 a share. I want you to imagine that. And all of us are using Zoom. I left a meeting to come to join this meeting. I'm going back to that meeting. And that meeting, before COVID, we went to Abuja every month to have that meeting at the villa. Since COVID, we've had only one meeting. All other meetings have been virtual. And now in planning our agenda for next year, we said one meeting virtual, one meeting physical. And that's what it's going to be for the next 12 months. So I want you to imagine the hotels we stay, the drivers that pick us, the food that we eat, the entertainment, and all of those things are no longer, at least in 2021, it's going to be 50% of what we spent in 2019. The IMF Article 4 review starts in exactly 14 days from today. Normally, when the Article 4 review comes, the IMF brings in about 12 or 15 people. They review all aspects of the economy, going to every country. What's going to happen this year? It's going to happen. Everything is going to be virtual. Auditors are auditing institutions virtually. So we are in a different world. I don't think that we should imagine that we are going to go back to the way we knew it. And we should think that, so the transition towards efficient markets, the transition towards greater accountability, the transition towards empowering young people, intergenerational change of power, intergender change of authority, not because it's legislated, but because that is the right thing to do, is going to happen. And therefore, what I'm saying here is that I would like to implore and encourage the female gender and all Nigerians. I don't want to, I hate saying, this reverse discrimination. I think that it's the females that are successful in Nigeria were not successful because they are female. They are successful because they are great and also extremely talented people. They didn't get there, because of their gender, and that's what's happening globally. You could see the debate between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence, and very succinctly she said, "Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking." And he dropped it there without trying to say, "Oh, do you realize I'm a female?" or not? But she made the point. So I think that, one, I'm happy that WIMBIZ is doing this. And two, I'm encouraged because my daughters also are aggressively pursuing the corporate ladder. And I have no doubts that they've achieved their success, not because of anything, but because of their talent. Same thing to my cousins and nieces and nephews and all of that. So I want to make it clear that I'm speaking today, I'm speaking to young Nigerians who coincidentally happen to be members of WIMBIZ who are in the female gender, but I'm also trying to say here that categorically that the role of government, the role of corporates, and the role of leaders transitioning from leadership to the boards to the shareholders it's irreversible. And I think I want to encourage everybody to hold on and make sure that we succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. And as usual, you've done justice to the topic. Thank you for chronicling your journey to the board. And thank you for making it known to us that transition to new ways of thinking is inevitable, and that transition to a more accountable society is also irreversible. We have to think of more new ways, more innovative ways of doing things going forward. Thank you for actually coming today. We understand your busy schedule. So I will give the honor to the able chair of the WIMBoard Mentoring Committee, Mrs. Ngozi Nzegu, to kick off with the first question. So can I ask admin to please unmute Mrs. Nzegu? Thank you, Ngozi. You have the floor. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I just want to say, I want to appreciate Bismarck for showing up today, because I know how busy you are and the kind of responsibility that you have. BJ, you were my boss in IMB. I recall that when I joined IMB Treasury, I called you a slave driver. The war pressure was becoming too much for me. And I recall that when the new generation banks, started opening, I came to you with about 3 offer letters. And I was so shocked that you helped me to select which bank to go to. And you said at that time, Ngozi, these other 2 banks have started. This one is about to start. You can either sink or swim with this bank. I didn't know that was coaching. And I went ahead to be part of a team that set up a new. BJ, you invited me to me.
Yeah.
That's my question.
I didn't hear that again. Can you say it again?
I didn't quite hear the question.
I said decades, so many years after I left the banking industry, you invited me to join the board of financial derivatives. Why did you invite me?
Okay, let me put it this way.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yes. Yeah.
Ngozi, thank you very much. The reality is that in corporate life and in life generally, you should always go back to old friends and old loyalties. I knew Ngozi as a young lady who worked very hard. She would complain that I was a slave driver, but she did the work anyway. And she continued. And to be honest with you, she always delivered, right? And she was brutally frank about her feelings about this is, we cannot do this, we can do this, we cannot do this, we cannot do this, we cannot do that. Because we had to approve what we call DPLs for counterparty banks. And she will come up with the analysis and I said, okay, fine, we'll do that. But then one thing I took away, 1, she was hardworking, resourceful. 2, she could not tolerate bad performance. And so my clients, when I left the bank, my shareholders, 38 of them were all my were existing clients. And so, and every day when we have strategy sessions, my clients say, oh, I remember when you were in the bank, there was one young lady called Ngozi who used to work with you. She is very good. Where is she? And that kept on coming up and up and up again. So one day, we were looking for new directors, and I said, okay, I'll go. I just mentioned it to some of the shareholders and directors. Oh, wow. So if you can get her, that would be a main catch, and that she will bring that attitude of forthrightness to the board. And Ngozi asked me when I called her, she said, why are you picking? I said, let me be the judge of that. Right? I'm taking the risk. Let's do that. And to be honest with you, I have no regrets, and the board has no regrets, and the shareholders have no regrets. She has added value. Because you see, being at the board is to give guidance. It is to bring a mental discipline to the culture of an institution, to bring about accountability, and to make sure that there's no abuse of office. I think that is it. So when you have board members who think alike, it permeates all the way to the rank and file, to the stakeholders including customers, suppliers, that we provide services to and all that. So that was the reason. And I say that first and foremost, remember, always people who go around making new friends every day. Yes, there's no harm in making new friends, but I tell you, the old friends that you know are 10 times better than the new friends you make along the way. Because fair weather friends cannot go very far with you. Old friends will stay the line. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So We have here forthrightness. She will help bring accountability and thank you very much. And it all speaks to integrity, which Mrs. Zaccheaus talked about very strongly during her session. All right, I have a Yinka Oshoba Akpata who would like to ask a question. Can admin please unmute her? Yinka, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm trying to start my video, but the host is not, okay, fine. Thank you, Mr. Bismarck, Rewane. Thank you very much for the insightful presentation, and I've always admired your insights into the financial market. So thanks for dropping some hints on Zoom there. My question is with regards to the board you were appointed to, the first board, the bank, where you indicated or alluded to the fact that some of the value systems or some of the practices were not aligned with yours and your other partner, and you sometimes thought about resigning. What advice would you give to somebody that finds themselves in the same situation today, especially if they still want to add value? And you know, a lot of people say just resign from that kind of board. But what kind of advice would you give to somebody that finds themselves in that situation today?
Well, thank you very much. In that case, you see, I was representing a corporate shareholder. So it wasn't up to me to resign. We had two options. One, either the entity toed the line and imbibed our culture, or we were going to sell our interests and pull out as a group. And I had to advise my board, that is I was not in the board of IMB, but I was a general manager. I had to advise my management that if the following were not done, A, B, C, D, E, then we would have no choice but to sell. An example was that under the arrangement, we were supposed to provide the managing director of the bank and for 5 years before, after selling them, we would sell down and we would give up. After 1 year, the indigenous bank, if I may use that word, they were telling us that they wanted to pick which of our managers should be the MD. So I told the governor of the state at that time and the chairman of the board that, can you imagine if the United States says that this is the man we want for you to nominate as an ambassador to our country? It is you that nominates the person that is going to serve as your ambassador in a country. The host country cannot tell you who to nominate to represent them. This argument went on for such a long time. And there was a stalemate. Of course, they had changed, our board had changed. It became such a stalemate. The military governor said, no, he was not going to have it. This is the person we want. And I said, Mr. Governor, you will not do that. It became such a difficult situation that through some political things that happened, one day, we're in the middle of this meeting having this discussion. And I made my case. My MD that time was well connected. He made his case. And the governor of the state was resolute. And then we went to Jos for this meeting, and we all walked away and said, okay, we'll come back one way or the other. By the time we entered the plane and got down in Lagos, they had announced on the news that the governor had been moved. There had been a reshuffling of governors. He had been removed. The MD, the person they wanted as MD, of course, we had to let the person go. And the person we wanted to be MD was made MD. So if they had not gone along with us, I would not have compromised. And if the MD of my bank decided to compromise, I would have asked to leave that board and probably leave the bank at that time. So I knew that if we compromised on that, every other thing, because the guy they wanted had already agreed to award contract to the wife of the governor, this, that, all sorts of things, you know. It was, we could feel it, that it was just an accident waiting to happen. So we put our foot down, and luckily my MD stood with me, and he called all his favors within the military hierarchy. And the then head of state, when he was told, he just said, okay, fine, no problem. That afternoon, The showdown in the board was at 1 o'clock. By 4 o'clock, the announcement was on the news. I didn't know what was happening. I had no clue. Just how the governor had been, 5 governors had been moved and blah, blah, blah. And that was the end of the story. So I think that's what I meant.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Bismarck. And you know, that speaks to the comments you made earlier about the goals of the board, the shareholders, management being misaligned. And that actually led to a lot of bank failures. And thank you for the position you took. It shows, as we all know, that you're a man of integrity, that if they had insisted on putting that man, okay, that the governor wanted, you would have resigned. So that's a good feedback for the mentees, that when something does not sit well with you, there's integrity, if there's integrity issue or some corporate governance issue, the best thing is to leave and make sure it's documented while you're leaving. So,
okay, let me just make a comment. If you compromise on one small thing, it never stops. They keep on coming back for more and more until you get to a point. The showdown will happen, but by that time you would have considered A, B, C, D. The lines have to be drawn very clearly at the beginning. That look, I'm not saying don't be obstinate.
Yeah.
What is due is due, but when it comes to say things, and there was one thing that happened. There was an in-law of the then governor who was a cashier, and he was involved in taking money that was, there was money due to a customer, I think 30,000 when money was money. And he took away 10,000 of his own, and the customer came back and said 10,000 was missing. The inspectors came and they found the 10,000 in the man's drawers and all of that. And the governor said nothing. We said he should be sacked. And the governor said he can never be sacked. So we said, okay, if we don't sack him, then that's the end of this relationship. The man said, you will not sack him. I said, okay, we will sack him. And that is what started the whole process of saying that he needed another MD. And he pointed to somebody within our system and said, I want that man to be MD. I said, no, forget it. It's not going to happen. And that's it. Because if we had given in on allowing his in-law, who was a cashier, who stole money to stay back in the bank, then it would have sent a signal to every other person that you can get away with anything as long as you are a relative of the wife of the governor and all of that. So that's
absolutely. Thank you very much for that response. Very well put. Bolanle here is asking, and she's saying, thank you for telling us your story to the board, Mr. Rewane. But what gave you the confidence to go on to that first board, despite not having your primary sponsors around anymore?
Well, I don't know what I think. Under the military, you wake up and you hear an announcement, and then the person you know is gone. That's even if he's alive. So all sorts of things happen. There were violent overthrows of government and all of that. And we got used to the uncertainty. But that itself became a major bottleneck or a major impediment of people investing in the country.
Yeah.
Because the goals of a military governor or a military president in appointing people, at first, in all fairness, at first when the military appointed people, they didn't know the people, they just said, so the permanent secretaries appointed their cronies and everything. But after a while, when they started seeing it as a way of making money, the misalignment of goals became clear. And then that is why you see today that many of the government-owned banks all failed, while those that were privately owned all succeeded because of this interference. But eventually, we started seeing that government ownership is not the only reason why institutions fail. Even private ownership, when there's corrupt practices, when there's lack of governance, when there's opacity, and all that can fail. So do not think that it's government ownership is the only reason for corporate failure. The things that make government ownership fail can also affect individuals. And also family-owned businesses. We saw that. How many family-owned businesses of 20 years or 50 years ago are still in existence today? So that's another thing. The transition from family-owned to corporate-owned, from corporate-owned to private equity-owned. You hear of all these things happening in the private equity world.
Yeah.
So we are in transition, and I think that we are getting there. And the companies that have survived all of this turbulence are going to survive intergenerational changes, and that's what you are seeing, and you will see as we go along. And I think the feminine gender will be very useful in that process of making sure that the intergenerational change, gender change, and alliance between companies and individuals.
Yes. All right, thank you, sir. We have two people who have indicated that they will ask their questions, and that are Judith and Stella. But before I get them unmuted, Isabella Okagwe is asking, is there any such thing as being on too many boards?
Yes. There's so much. Yeah, if you are going to add value, then you have to be able to give time to go through the board papers, to do the analysis, and it's not the number of hours that you spend on the board at the board meeting. It is the value of making sure that critical decisions about ownership, about board, about promotions, about audits, about exceptions, and all those things are followed, so that once the governance structure is there, the board meetings become relatively easy. And what used to happen before Zoom, we all fly around and you have to go to Abuja to a meeting, you have to go to London. Those things were time consuming. But now you can attend. Today I've attended 3-4 meetings, and I've excused myself for one to go back now. And it's very clear that we can be much more efficient in all that we do today. This will end. What shocks me is that in spite of these Zoom and virtual meetings, the traffic in Lagos, okay, let me take that back because Bridge, but it's amazing that the traffic is even getting worse when schools are virtual, when work meetings are virtual and all that. So there seems to be something structurally wrong, but we'll come to that. But can you imagine what would have happened if there was no COVID? All of this is what happened. Then you won't be able to move from one part of Lagos to the other, and also in Abuja. So I think, to be honest with you, maybe 7, 8 maximum, where you and adding value, especially in areas where you have expertise. Don't go into a board of, let me put it this way, the board of a drilling company if you don't know anything about oil drilling and seismic engineering. So I would say you must have some flair for what you want to do, and you must be able to understand the dynamics of the industry, so that what would take ordinary people about 3-4 hours to understand, you can read the papers in 30 minutes and pick the salient points and take a position. That's what I would say.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for your response. So Stella, can you ask your question, please?
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you very much for well-spoken for your presentation. And I must say that I'm so inspired reading through your profile, being on top of on the board of top companies. It's quite inspiring. So my question is about when you were appointed to be on the board of that new bank, and how did you were you mentored, because that was your first time of sitting on a board? What was the process you went through, adjusting and understanding what it takes to be on a board and all that? Please, can you explain, sir?
Well, you see, I worked for an MD. First of all, he was a young man. Secondly, he's a man, Chief Ebitimi Banigo. He's a man who is a risk taker. In fact, too risk taking, if you ask me. And so you can imagine how young he was, and first, 2 things happened. One, there was a shake-up in the bank, and he had to fire some top people. All my life, I'd been in the corporate banking, development finance. Then he just called me one afternoon, come down to my office. I said, yes, BJ, fortunately, I have to make you the treasurer of the bank. I said, what? I've never been on the liability side of the balance sheet. And you're making me, come on, this is in today's parlance, you're talking about billions of naira. How can you do that? I can't. He said, you will. I'm making that bet on you. And I said, I can't. Maybe it's not possible. I don't know, Jack. I don't even know what. He said, you will learn fast. In any case, this discussion is over. And he just walked away and left me there. And of course, it came with a promotion and everything. I don't want, he said, no, I'm sorry, you start tomorrow. And I had only 2 staff. That's how I sojourned into Treasury. So I had an MD who always took risks on people. Did they always work? No, sometimes they didn't work. But in most cases, he made a judgment call on you. So he called me and said, I know you have no, you will learn. He said he judges people not by what they know, but what they are likely to know. So he said, you will learn, you're a young man. If you cannot learn at this time, then you will never learn. And he turned around and said, all those white boys that have come from the States here, are they better than you? No, you beat them in class. So go ahead and do what they are doing. They bring a young white boy of 20 to come and be chief executive of USC. And all that. How come? And you Nigerians are afraid to take responsibility. So I said, okay, thank you very much. He said, this guy that walked in here with the slippers as a military governor, did he know about 2 weeks ago before the coup that he would be a governor? He didn't. So is it better than you? No. So please go ahead and do it. So that was the mentality we were brought up with and mentored by our bosses, to be risk-taking, to have risk mitigants, and to be bold, to do whatever it is, and to know that in everything you do, there will be a change. So when we heard on the radio that my MD had been removed, it came as a shock to me, but I was not afraid of dealing with the new people, because I knew that sooner or later they would have had to accept my views or they would fire me. So, and I wasn't afraid of being fired. So I think that's the key to it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. So before I call on Judith, I'll like to read out some of the questions that have been dropped in the chat box. Chukwuelua said, I knew of you long before I met you. You have always had a reputation as a cerebral contributor in any space. I would like you to speak on how you built this brand, which makes you sought after. Basically, how did you go from being on a board to a position where it's a privilege for the board to have you on it? I think that's an excellent question, sir.
I think so. You see, I don't want you to attribute it to the individual. It's the time. At the time when everybody was compromised, the only way you get to boards was if you were compromised and you were able to cut corners and do all sorts of things. It just happens to be that the time for incisive thinking, the time for accurate interpretation of facts, and thinking strategically about how the external environment affects the internal environment became necessary. And therefore, that is what drove this whole process. Because if you start off by being compromised, and that's the worst thing that will happen. To be honest with you, there are loads and loads of people more brilliant than I am. It's not about intellect and brilliance. It's about part intellect, part wisdom, part courage, right? And then yes, in all of these things, 80% luck. That's God's, when the stars are aligned for you, everything else will align. So you pray to God that if the stars are not aligned, you can be Einstein and you will get nowhere. So I don't want you to assume that, once you are bright or supposedly believed to be bright, then you succeed. No. There's brightness, the time for wisdom. There are many people who are not intelligent but are wise.
Yeah.
Okay. So you must be wise, you must be intelligent, you must have courage to look at people and tell them in a very nice way that, sorry, if you do this thing, I don't want any trouble. Can you just, let me go to somebody else? Yeah. All right. So I think that has happened where anything that is too good to be true is not likely to be true. So, and I've stayed away from, rosy, great, what do people call great opportunity. I'm not interested. I didn't get to where I am cutting corners, and I'm not going to learn. It's too late in the day for me to start learning how to cut corners.
Yeah.
So that's my approach.
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much, sir. So it boils down to integrity, being wise, being intelligent, and being courageous. Thank you, sir. So someone else has asked that, sir, what should a family, you had mentioned about the transition of the business from family business to a corporate business to private equity to public,
Yes.
and on and on. So the question is, what should a family business setting up a board for the first time look out for? And what ratio should the family members constitute on the board for effectiveness?
I think that first and foremost, the transition from family business is not, what you should think about is that first, how much of technical knowledge is required in that business. The fact that you have majority interest does not mean that you must put your own I don't want to, let me not use the word nominees. You can nominate independent directors. Companies do better with independent directors than those who have shares in it. Because there's a reason why doctors are not allowed to treat their family members. There's a reason why lawyers are not allowed to defend their family members. There's a reason why, because undue influence and compromise can only undermine efficiency and outcomes. So I don't think, there's any numerical formula. It's a question that if you know what is good for you. I had a late relative who knew 10, 15 years or 20 years before he passed that he needed a structure that was sustainable after he passed. He set up everything. He divested his interest in every company he had interest. He reduced himself to a minority shareholder. In other words, he went from 60% ownership to 40%, even though he fragmented the other shareholding. Because he said that if anything happened to him, he didn't want the family squabble to actually affect the ownership and the running of the companies. So when you have that kind of structure, if there's any change of owner, anything happens, you'll find that the family interest is, even though they are the largest single shareholders, but they will not have a majority, so that the squabbling of the family or squabbling or internal squabbles will not affect the ongoing concern of that business. I think that is it. But again, you have to be careful because you could invite new shareholders who will bring malignant corporate culture into the company, and then you know what that means. So there's a what we can call a mix that can be an efficient mix, which will make the company achieve its goals. But as long as shareholder value is being unlocked, as long as there is corporate governance, as long you will find that a company is more likely to succeed and continue to grow because they don't have those potent, malignant things that can actually cannibalize a company.
Mm. Yes, well said, sir.
Last question, please.
All right, thank you, sir. Well, there are so many questions in the chat box, but you know what? I'll just say that the comments have been very complimentary. Courage, that's the word I've been looking for. Thank you. And everyone has said that you have really inspired them by your story. And we appreciate that you will be stepping out for your other meeting. So in 30 seconds, sir, what is the main message that you would like the mentees to take away? So what's your final piece of advice to us?
That the longest journey in the world is the first step. And that always learn. Two things. Learn. No, I said the longest journey in the world starts with a one step. 1. 2, learn from your own mistakes, but more important, learn from the mistakes of others. always learn from mistakes. And I tell you something, in our time, our goal as young employees, when I was working in First National Bank of Chicago, was to be as good as my boss. So if my boss used to write commitments, write letters, and I take them home and read and study them and say, how can I ever learn to write like this man? I used to think that, and they were different, and all of them of the same quality. And after a while, it became part of my DNA, that I could think like them, I could speak like them, and I could write like them. So I learned from the best, right? And so in those days, if you work for a fine organization that have fine minds, you are likely to come out as one of those fine minds because by association. And that's what happened to us, and that's what happened to IMB. And that's why every day there's an IMB platform for the alumni of IMB. And they're very proud of what, as a group, we achieved. The young ones, also young, and everybody, and we say it casually that if you had the department heads in IMB in those days as a cabinet of a country, this country would far outstrip any African country. But that's where we are where we are. So the lessons are one, learn from the mistakes of others, learn from your own mistakes, and also try to emulate as much as possible quality. If you work for somebody, learn how the person thinks, how he writes, how he operates. And even if he has some bad sides, ignore the bad sides, but look for the strength in him and him or her, and copy, learn from there. Thank you very much, ladies, for having me.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. You've just given us a lot to think about learning from ourselves, from our mistakes, learning from other people's mistakes, and emulating best practices, taking the strength from people and leaving whatever negatives they have. So on behalf of WIMBIZ and the mentees, I wish to thank you for sharing your incredible story with us. So
thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time, sir. So to round up, I'm sorry, we didn't hear you, sir.
I say thank you, Ngozi, for the opportunity.
Right, yes, thank you. So that brings to an end the sessions for today. And I want to thank both speakers most sincerely. And I trust that these stories will help the mentees, that's women on boards and women who aspire to sit on boards, gain access to the critical experiential knowledge and resources they need to hone their board readiness and leadership skills. Thank you very much. So at this time, I think we're very good on time. So at this point in time, I would like to turn this over to my fellow member, mentoring committee member, my vice chair, Mrs. Adedoyin Odunfa, to take the announcements and the closing remarks. Thank you very much. And I have enjoyed being the moderator of today's event. My name is Hetty Ubo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hetty. Can I please have my video turned on? Thank you very much. I'd like to join my voice with Hetty's to again thank our mentees today who have so eloquently and frankly shared their stories. Who have so eloquently and frankly shared the stories of their journey to the boardroom. Your stories have been extremely inspiring, extremely authentic, insightful, instructive, and very real. I would like to thank you so much for sharing with us. Can you all hear me, please? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Right.
Yes, we can.
So listening to those stories, they're very, very different styles, but I think that we all benefited from all of them. Listening to those stories, some may say that there has been a good dose of perhaps luck. But you know, there's an adage that says that luck is what happens when opportunity meets with preparedness. And I think that's really, really important. And I think Mrs. Zaccheaus touched on that also. I'd also like to thank the WIMBIZ Board of Trustees. I'd like to thank the Executive Council
the Secretariat for their support in birthing this program and sustaining it. I must, of course, thank the WIMBoard Mentoring Committee, of which I serve as Vice Chair, for all the hard work towards the program. To you all, mentees of this landmark maiden WIMBoard mentoring program, I thank you for all your attention, your diligence, and indeed your presence in today's programs. And of course, we must thank God for bringing it to pass. I want to leave you with these encouraging words from our mentors from today. Mr. Rewane talked about a transition to a more accountable society. He said that was inevitable. Now, if we combine that with his points also about the fact that women are known to exhibit higher levels of integrity, it may mean then that our time has come and it all will start to come together. He also talked about wisdom, intellect, and courage as necessary ingredients at this time, and emphasized on learning from our mistakes and especially from others' mistakes. Mrs. Zaccheaus encouraged us and charged us to be confident, to be prepared, to be well-informed, to be yourself, to be visible, to be credible, to have integrity, and please don't forget to recommend other women. Finally, there's a quote that says, never stop learning because life never stops teaching. Another one says, never stop learning because when we stop learning, we stop growing. So please, let's keep learning, let's keep growing, let's put to practice all that we've learned. Thank you very much, and God bless you. See you again in 2 weeks for our next program. Thank you all, and God bless you.